Ladies and gentlemen, I have some matters that I need to discuss with the lawyers, and I'm going to briefly excuse you. I'm going to ask you to retire to the jury deliberation room so I can speak to them, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. We'll keep you posted if it's long. Please remember my usual instructions during this break, not to discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Don't listen to anything or read anything about the case, and don't look anything up about the case. So we'll see you as quickly as we're able. Thank you.
All right, jury.
Great. Mr. Hubel, you're free to step down, sir. I'll ask you kindly to continue while I discuss some matters with the lawyers. I'm afraid I can't allow you to leave yet because we're going to need to bring you back. All right? Sure. All right. Thank you very much, sir. And everyone may be seated. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Hoole has left the courtroom, so I wanted to, at the bench, I was about to ask Attorney Newkirk why do you believe the state would not be able to cross-examine the information that you elicited about knowing about the other information that he knew as reflected in that interview transcript?
So it may come down to looking back at the transcript, for lack of a better term, of exactly what I said, because what I said, Your Honor, was specifically tailored, as I've indicated in the argument at the bench, to comments he made to the police, and I will refer the court to the counsel again for the record. We have a transcript here, and I'll read it. Page 24 of the transcript of his interview with the state police, day of the incident, on line 17. Mr. Hoole indicated, this is absolutely horrible and shocking to think, because Billy has never been aggressive to me. You know what I mean? He's always treated me, I guess, kind of like a father figure, although he never listened to me. So, my questioning was narrowly tailored to talk about Mr. Hoole's personal experiences with Billy and his treatment towards him. So, Your Honor would, I believe, be able to allow the state to cross-examine is if I gave a misleading impression to the jury, which would arguably then allow them to bring in otherwise impermissible and inadmissible evidence.
Well, what other effect could the statement that you elicited from Mr. Hoole have, other than as character evidence that Mr. Kelly is not an aggressive person?
Is very specific factual evidence that in their relationship with one another, he had not been aggressive to him. And that's how the witness answered. The witness said, listen.
But what other inference could the jury draw? What other relevant inference could the jury draw from that, except that Mr. Kelly is not an aggressive person, and therefore, because he was not aggressive toward Mr. Hoole, he was not aggressive toward Ms. Falzone?
I didn't ask about his reputation in the community. I didn't ask about Mr. Hoole's overall knowledge of Mr. Kelly's reputation as to aggressiveness. I asked about his personal experience. If the state or the court thought that that was not relevant, in this case, the state should have objected to it. So I'm eliciting the relationship they had with one another, the observations that Mr. Hoole made about the times on his property, which was later dovetailed into my questions about whether he had heard any incidents, whether he would respond conscientiously to hearing any type of argument or any type of sounds of violence that occurred. So what I was doing doing was creating for the jury the indication that Mr. Poole was cognizant of his relationship with and the tenors of that relationship with Mr. Kelly. He answered honestly in saying, listen, I've never had any aggression. We've had some cross words with one another at certain times, but nothing out of the normal, in no violence. Then I tie it into this particular incident in what the state, right, through their rhetoric in this case, are trying to indicate that he somehow, because he is a domestic violence abuser, has squirreled away Christine Falzone in this hole and basically kept her there, beat her, done horrible things to her ad infinitum for the entire period he's there. It's important for me to try to indicate a couple of things. Again, that this is a man who is observant of his property, who is responsible and conscientious, who is observing the actions of the individual he's with, who's not just looking at him in a certain way because they have coffee together every morning, but who is assessing his character in that moment on his property with open eyes. And he gave me that answer. He said, listen, I had arguments with him, but in my interaction with him here at this time, he is not violent. So for that then, to allow the state to talk about allegations and charges of domestic violence for which the witness has absolutely no personal knowledge is incredibly prejudicial. It doesn't address any narrowly tailored and clear impression that I gave to the jury in this particular incident. So I think Your Honor is inviting the jury at that point to speculate about incidences which are not relevant to this, which are unduly prejudicial, which this witness has absolutely no personal knowledge of other than the nature of an allegation. And they will not change that witness's ultimate impression of the very specific question I asked him, which was of their dealings with one another. I didn't come out with this question out of nowhere. The state police asked the question. I asked the same one.
The question is not just the interactions with the defendant that day. It was, you were shocked by this, and you were shocked because you have never known him to be an aggressive person. He has never been aggressive with you. And while the question may have been, he was never aggressive with you, the only import that the jury could take from the fact that he was shocked he did something like this because he was not aggressive with me was, I was surprised because he is not an aggressive person. That is the only inference the jury can draw from that question. That is what it's being offered for, to say that the defendant is not an aggressive person, and that is why Mr. Poole was so surprised when this happened. So that does, in fact, open the door to both to impeach Mr. Poole with his knowledge of prior domestic violence offenses, as well as to counter the character evidence that has now been introduced portraying Mr. Kelly as a non-aggressive person.
Anything further?
No, I think it holds. Again, it seems to me, again, kind of going meta on this a little bit, the state has a great deal of evidence which they're going to present in a compelling manner in this particular case. To take a side road into an entirely bombastic area which is absolutely unnecessary for the prosecution of their case, to open up a whole area of inquiry, another feature of the case, another, talking about another person, another alleged victim, another incident, through a witness who just said, my dealings with him, in response to a narrowly tailored question, my dealings with him did not involve aggression. That's it. Again, if what they wanted to do was present, if you or you being the court or the state believe that to be irrelevant for my purpose, which was just to show their dealings with one another at that period in time. Because listen, if what I was looking for was a reputation about him, we've got a guy who had drug problems. Had a guy who's been arrested before. Clearly, his reputation in general is something that has vacillated and changed over time. Why would I want to get into his general reputation? I wouldn't.
Well, I understand that, but
I will say that as I was sitting here, you know, watching the witness and listening to the cross-examination, that question did come on the heels of, I got a text message from my neighbor that there was an ambulance at the bottom of the street. I thought, you know, there was a pit bull there. I was shocked by this. And then the question was, had he ever been aggressive to you? No, he hadn't. I do think the impression was left that this gentleman believes, well, Billy could not have done this because he's not an aggressive person. So I do think that it left that impression. I think that's the impression that the jurors, having heard the evidence as I did, I think they would draw that impression. So I am going to allow the state to cross-examine only with the statement that Mr. Houle made in his own interview. I'm not opening the door to you know, other instances of conduct, but just what Mr. Houle's knowledge of reputation of his character for being aggressive or non-aggressive may be. I'm going to limit it to that extent, to his own statement from that interview transcript. And again, I think that that is a reasonable exercise of my discretion here
So can we
because of
just-
the
I understand
opinion.
your ruling, but there, if we review the page of the transcript that they have in this sidebar, if there's a potential hornet's nest that it goes into it, because it's all speculative, because Mr. Houle wasn't there, he doesn't have personal knowledge of these things, so these are all things that he heard, right? Including, line 14, well, no, I guess he paid thousands of dollars to get off of that one, because I forgot her name, maybe that was such and such. So if the state, if you're,
Rule 405A says that when evidence of a person's character or trait is admissible, which I found that it is here for the reason stated, it may be proved by testimony about the person's reputation or by testimony in the form of an opinion. So, yeah, I mean, you can respond to it, but I think it is unfair to the state to leave that impression hanging out there that this couldn't have been Billy because he was not aggressive. And at least to clarify what Mr. Houle meant by that. He hadn't been aggressive to me, but I have no idea whether, you know, I think that they can do that, and they can do that by making reference to his own statements. On recross, if he says something that is fairly, you know, rebutted by or met by something else that he said, that you can bring that out. But I do think that
well,
it would be unfair to leave that to preclude the state from any response to that cross-exam, that statement that Mr. Houle made on cross-examination.
So you're going to allow them to, I don't know if they give it, I'm just trying to cover the bases before.
Yeah.
Elicit this thing about paying $1,000 to get off when he's represented by a public defender, and then that would, do you understand what the way I'm thinking?
So I can say, Your Honor, I don't intend, on redirect, my intention is to ask, you said he was not aggressive to you, but you did tell the state police you are aware he has a history of domestic violence. That was against, you believe, another woman, not Christine. That would be the extent of my question.
If that's what he said, and if leading him to that will help stay out of the hornet's nest that defense counsel fears, then I will allow him to be led in that manner.
Perhaps, and my concern, again, I object to Your Honor's ruling.
I understand you do.
And I think it opens the door to again, I think that the states, and I understand your ruling.
Yeah.
But I would argue that the state's retort, if they believe that any mistaken impression was generated, would be to say to the jury in argument, listen, all he said was that their relationship was not an aggressive one. He didn't say anything at all about his knowledge in the community, about his this and that, about his knowledge of other things. And that would be the proper way to do it. He doesn't, because my question
I
is
know,
so
but
very
that precludes them from presenting evidence. It makes them argue without evidence that they have, to which I do believe the door was opened to by inquiring, particularly in the immediate context, again, that question was not asked in your general lead up, how long had he lived there? How long had he known him? Had you ever had any, friction with him or anything like that? No, he was never, he was always pleasant with me. It came right on the heels of asking about this incident, and weren't you shocked by it? And he agreed that he was. And, and then you elicited a statement. He had never been aggressive to me. I think that the whole way it unfolded did leave that impression, and I don't think that it's fair to preclude the state from offering in a limited way, as we've discussed, evidence that they have that's known to this witness. I don't think you have to make them argue with one hand tied behind their back when there is evidence that's known to this witness, or it's at least reputation evidence, and they can say, or you can say, all you know about that is hearsay, right? But it is, that's what reputation evidence is. So I will allow it in the manner I've just described. And again, I realize the risks there. I'm sitting here watching the trial very, very carefully. I believe that it's an appropriate exercise of my discretion here with the limits that I've stated that counsel for the state understands.
The only other idea I would float is because of the potential of courting a mistrial, depending on what he says. If he doesn't narrowly answer the question that the state narrowly tailors to him. I don't know if I would request that a voir dire outside the presence of the jury occur, where he's asked those questions, we see what his responses are, and then we do the real run in front of the jury. Because if he comes out with something the state does not anticipate, which he has been wanting to do, I believe, then this whole thing could be for naught.
Well, I think the state can control that by a leading question, and I will control him if he starts wandering out, outside the lines.
But what is said cannot be unsaid.
Well, again, I don't. We know what he has said in the interview. Counsel is going to elicit that statement. I don't think a long voir dire is really necessary here, but my finger will be on the button. All right? Please bring the jurors back in. And please bring Mr. Houle back in. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Houle. You can step right back up here, sir. Thanks for hanging around for us. Thank you, everybody. You may be seated, and the state may proceed.
Thank you. Just a few more questions for you. You talked with Attorney Newkirk. You said that when you first heard that a woman had died down the road, you thought it could have been a pit bull. Was that an assumption you were making?
Well, yeah, it was my own mind. Yeah, no, I thought that the pit bull had done the damage, that it had eaten one of the two humans, is what my original thought was.
But you didn't know what had actually
No, I had no clue.
And you talked with Attorney Newkirk about the fact that the defendant was never aggressive with you. Do you know how he treated the woman who was living at the bottom of the hill?
Correct. He was never aggressive with me, but no, I have no idea. But this is Attorney Newkirk here. Okay.
So you don't know how he treated the woman that was living
No,
there?
sir.
And when you were interviewed by state police, you told them that the defendant had never been aggressive with you. And I'm not asking for specifics here, but you also told them that you were aware the defendant had a prior history of domestic violence.
Oh, yeah, I've known him for 20 years, yeah.
And you believe that incident was with someone else named Nicole, not Christine.
I thought Christine's name was Nicole. I don't know why I thought that, but I didn't have much association with her, so I didn't really know her name for sure.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. 20-year relationship.
Pardon me?
It was a 20-year relationship between you and.
Did you give or take?
And during that relations, he treated you like a father figure.
Yeah, so I tried to help. You know, I give free advice to anybody who asks for it. They don't always take it, but
And in that effort, when he said he needed a roof over his head, you gave him a roof over his head.
well, it was that or he was going to pitch a tent in my backyard, is what he said.
So you worked out an arrangement with him?
Pardon me?
You worked out an arrangement with him?
He did, yeah.
And when he brought his girlfriend in that residence, you told him, hey, you know, the rent should be higher if she's here.
No, I didn't know she was there for 6 months.
Right, but then you found out, right?
Yeah.
And being the father figure that you were, you didn't kick him out. You let him stay.
Well, yeah, he had no place to go, and where's he going to find a place for $300 a month? You know,
Thank you.
using $800 in electricity. But anyway, well, the heater broke down, and then there was a monitor heater that needed a filter cleaned, and
I think where I'm going with it is even despite those logistics, you had a heart about it, right?
I'm sorry, I
I
didn't
said,
hear.
despite those logistics, you had a heart about it.
Yeah, I didn't want anybody to be out in the cold. Yeah, including Christine. I didn't want anybody to be homeless.
Thank you.
Further?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Houle, thank you very much for being here today and for your testimony. You may step down and you're free to go, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
State may call its next witness.
State calls Allison Frost.
Ms. Frost, if you would please remain standing for just a moment
Yes, sir.
and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please start by introducing yourself and spelling your name for the court reporter?
Yes, my name is Allison Frost, ALLISONFROST,
Where do you live?
337 Water Village Road in Ossipee, New Hampshire.
How long have you lived there?
10 years.
Do you live with anyone?
I do.
Who?
My husband and my 3 children,
How old are your kids?
11, 9, and 6.
And how long have you been married to Ethan?
12 years.
Have the two of you lived at 337 Water Village Road together the entire time?
Yes.
Were you living there in December of 2023?
Yes.
Where is 332 Water Village Road in relation to your house?
Across the street.
Who owns that property?
Kevin Houle.
And can you tell us generally where 332 is on that property?
Directly across the street, about 50 feet from my front door.
Is there another house at the top of the hill above 332?
Yes.
Who lives there?
At this moment, I'm not sure, but it was Kevin Houle.
In December of 23,
Yes.
it was Mr. Houle.
Yep.
In December of 2023, who lived at 332 at the bottom of it?
William Kelly.
Can you describe the structure he was living in?
Small green shack-like structure.
And from December of 2023, how long had William Kelly lived there?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, how long had Mr. Kelly lived at the bottom of the hill as of December of 2023?
Steadily about 2 years, but before that, a handful of times.
Did you have occasion to interact with him while he was living there?
A few times, maybe.
Would you recognize him if you saw him again?
Yes.
Do you see him here in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you just point him out for us and identify something he's wearing?
A gray tie and a white shirt.
As the record reflect, the witnesses identified the defendant.
It will so reflect.
During the couple of years that the defendant was living across the street from you, was anyone else living with him?
We had seen a female there from time to time.
Did you ever meet that female?
No.
Did you ever speak with her?
No.
Did you see her outside of the residence hall?
In the summer of 2023, yes. In the winter, not as much.
About how many times total would you say you saw that female over the course of them living there?
I would say almost daily. To put a number on it, probably 100.
The female?
Yes.
And you said that that was more frequent in the
In the summer,
What about
yes.
the winter?
Yep.
Would you see her in the winter?
I saw her once.
I want to talk specifically about December 17th of 2023. Did you hear anything coming from across the street that morning?
I did.
What did you hear?
Yelling.
Could you tell who was yelling?
Yes.
Who was it?
William Kelly.
Could you make out what he was yelling?
No.
About what time did you hear that yelling?
About 9:30 in the morning.
Are you able to see what's going on over there across the street at all?
Not really.
Why not?
Because there's things in front of the windows and trees.
So did you see anything happening at the same time you heard the yelling?
No.
But you recognized the defendant's voice.
Yes.
Had you heard anything the night before that?
Yes.
What did you hear?
Yelling.
Was it the defendant yelling?
Yes.
And again, were you able to make out any of what he was saying?
No.
And were you able to see anything?
No.
When the defendant was yelling the night before, what was his tone like?
Angry.
And what about the morning of the 17th?
Angry.
One moment, Chief. That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other attorney.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Ross, just a couple questions.
Sure.
Okay. So you're living across the street, trying to raise a young family.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this shack across the way from you, right? You have to, out loud. You have to, with the head nods, I have to make you answer out loud.
We're
Okay,
keeping
yes.
a record of
Oh,
everything
yes.
that's said here, so it has to be verbalized so
Okay.
that it can be picked up. Thank you for understanding.
Yes.
And you've indicated that you would hear Mr. Kelly yell and grumble and do that quite frequently, right?
Yes.
This was kind of like a feature of his personality across the street from you.
Yes.
So his grumblings, his yellings on any particular day are a normal thing.
Yes.
So on the 17th of December, the day before, there was not some unusual tenor or tone to him yelling.
No.
Nothing unusual about your observations of him on that particular day, other than 5 days before, or 10 days before, or a month before.
No.
Okay. Now, during the cold weather months, you said you didn't see Christine out and about much.
No.
Okay, once maybe.
Yes.
But in the summer, you saw her moving on or about the structure that was there.
Yes.
And fair to say you try to be a pretty reasonable, conscientious person?
Yes.
Okay. Was there ever a time when you saw Mr. Kelly physically touch or abuse her?
No.
If you had ever observed that in the hundreds of times that you saw her out and about that property throughout the summer, what would you have done?
Probably said something.
Or called the police, right?
Yeah.
At the very least.
Yes.
That is not something you would have abided then, nor that you would keep from this juror now. You'd let them know.
Yes.
So despite all the grumbling, all the yelling that you heard, you never saw at any time any indication of violence between Mr. Kelly and Ms. Falzone.
Not physical.
You heard yelling,
Yes.
but oftentimes you didn't hear the back and forth, you're saying.
No.
So you just heard a man yelling
Yes.
without contact.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nothing further. Ms. Frost, thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Testimony is all done. Step down and please go.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
State close, Ethan Frost.
Good morning, sir. If you would kindly step up here to this chair. And would you kindly remain standing for a moment and raise your right hand? You solemnly swear the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
You may be seated.
Morning. Morning. If you could start, please, by introducing yourself and spelling your name for the court reporter.
Ethan Frost, ETHAN-FROST,
Where do you live?
337 Water Village Road.
And we just heard from your wife, Allison. Do you live there with her and your kids?
Yes,
How long have you lived there?
I've lived there my whole life.
Were you both living there in December of 2023?
Yes,
And where is 332 Water Village Road in relation to your house?
directly across the street.
Who owns that property?
Kevin Hool.
Did, at that time, Mr. Hool have a house up the hill?
Yes,
Who was living at the bottom of the hill?
William Kelly.
Can you describe the structure he was living in for us?
It was kind of a shack that was attached to a trailer that with a lean-to off the back.
About how long have you been living there in December of 2023?
I'd say a couple years.
Over those couple of years, did you have occasion to interact with him?
Every now and again.
Would you recognize him if you saw him again?
Yes,
And do you see him in the courtroom here today?
yes I do.
Could you point him out for us and identify something he's wearing?
White button-up shirt, gray tie.
Does the record reflect he's identified the defendant?
It will reflect.
I want to talk with you specifically about December 17th of 2023. Was the defendant still living across the street from you at that time?
Yes,
Was there a woman living with him at that time?
every now and again. Didn't really see too often, but
About when did you start seeing that woman?
I guess it was summertime of 23.
And between the summertime of 23 and December 17th of 23, about how many times would you say you saw her around the property?
2 or 3 times.
And on that day, December 17th, did you hear anything going on across the street that morning?
A little bit of yelling in the morning.
Could you tell who was yelling?
To me, it sounded like William Kelly.
And you've heard his voice before?
Yes.
So you recognized his voice as the one doing the yelling. Did you hear anything the night before?
I did not.
When you heard yelling the morning of December 17th, was it one voice? Was it multiple voices?
I only heard his voice.
And about what time was that?
8:30 probably.
What did the defendant's tone sound like when you heard that yelling?
Aggravated.
One moment, Judge. So I have for right now. Thank you.
Counsel?
Mr. Frost, just a couple questions.
Yep.
All right, so your ability to observe Christine, that's the name of the woman who's on the property, was relatively limited. You said you only saw her about 3 or 4 times?
Yep.
Okay. Your wife had seen her more. Is she around the property a little bit more in those hours?
Yeah.
In the time that you observed her, did you see her with Mr. Kelly?
Sometimes it was by herself, but I'm assuming he was there.
Okay. Did you ever, in any of those observations of them, observe him acting violently towards her?
Not that I saw.
If you had seen that, you would have done something about it?
Yeah.
No further questions.
Nothing further?
Mr. Frost, thank you very much for your testimony, sir. You're all done. Step out. You're welcome to leave.
Judge, next witness, maybe about 20 minutes. You wanna-
Yeah, I was gonna say, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate that you had a break already this morning, but everybody else in the courtroom also needs a little breather. This seems to me a good time to do it. We'll take another 15-minute break for everybody to stretch their legs, use the facilities, freshen up a bit, and let's come back at 11:25, and then after that, we'll go for about another hour again before we take our lunch break. Please remember, as always, not to discuss the case with anyone during this short break, and don't listen to anything, don't read anything about the case, and don't look anything up about the case. We'll see you about 11:25. Thank you.
All rise for the jury.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Let's see.
Correct, the state called Jeremiah Stout. Mr. Stout, if you could please introduce yourself to the jurors and spell your name for the court reporter.
Good morning, Barry. Jeremiah Stout, and Jeramiah, and last name Stout.
And if you could speak into the microphone, that would be great, so we can hear you from back here. Mr. Stout, back in the summer of 2023, were you working at 332 Water Village Road in Ossipee?
Yes.
And what kind of work did you do at the property?
Firewood?
And was that outdoors work?
Yes.
And who hired you to do that work?
Kevin Hool?
About when did you begin working at the property on 332 Water Village Road? About?
2023, I think it was early summer.
And did you work at the property regularly from that summer to December of 2023?
I did.
About how often would you work at 332 Water Village Road during this period? About?
So probably 3 to 4 days a week, maybe 5, depending on the week.
Fair to say it wasn't consistent, it was you had other jobs going on and you'd go from job to job?
Yeah, so normally I do tree removal, and when scheduled jobs were scheduled, I would do those. And then this was just like a fallback job where I could go cut and store and stack firewood.
From your time working at 332 Water Village Road, did you see and encounter the man who rented a structure on the property closest to the main road at the bottom of the hill?
I did.
And what was that man's name?
Billy Kelly?
And would you recognize him if you saw him?
Yes,
And do you see him in the courtroom here today?
I do.
And could you identify him for us by what clothes he's wearing?
White shirt, gray tie.
May the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
It will.
And Mr. Stout, did you actually know the defendant before you began working at 332 Water Village Road?
Acquaintances, kind of. So we went to high school together. We knew who each other were, but weren't in like the same friend circle. It was just I knew of him and spoke to him a couple times, maybe.
When you were working at the property, about how often would you see the defendant there?
Almost every day that I was there.
And what generally would he be doing when you would see him?
Feeding animals, watering animals, He was always like farm work, tending to the animals pretty much.
Did the defendant eventually help you in the work that you were doing on the property?
He did help a couple, 3, 4, 5 times, somewhere around there, a handful of times.
And how did that come about?
So pretty much, he had no vehicle or way to make money. And we had spoke a couple times that, you know, he was down on his luck. So while I was there, and I saw him about, I asked him if he wanted to help make some extra money.
And you said that from your time there, the defendant did not have a car?
Correct.
Did you ever see the defendant leaving or outside 332 Water Village Road in the months that you worked at the property?
You mean like did I see him like leave the property, or like did I see him about in town?
Yeah, about in town.
No.
Did you ever go on to the defendant's enclosed area or in the residence itself in the months that you were at 332 Water Village Road?
No, I wasn't. I never went inside the apartment, I guess, or the house. And outside was a giant ram, so no.
From the months that you worked at 332 Water Village Road, did you ever see a woman where the defendant was staying in his part of the property?
Yes.
About how many times did you see that woman?
I can say for sure, probably one time.
And about when was that? About?
So it was no snow on the ground. It was probably late fall. She was outside on her cell phone smoking a cigarette.
And who did the defendant identify as the woman who was where he was living?
Just by his girlfriend.
And in the months that you worked at 332 Water Village Road, you saw that woman once?
One time.
Would you be able to describe her?
Dark hair. That's it. I couldn't tell you if she was in front of me today what she looked like.
Did the defendant ever tell you her name?
No. Just girlfriend.
Who was Chance?
The dog was a black and white pit bull.
And how did you know Chance's?
Billy always talked about Chance when we would be doing firewood every couple hours, or give about. He would say he had to go let his dog out, and then there was like a little pen outside of the dwelling that he would let the dog kind of out and roam, but was just in that area. Like, so I'd see him through a fence, but not.
And did you yourself have familiarity with Chance and have encounters with Chance?
Yep, I did. That's kind of just like all the animals. I would like feed them treats or whatever through the fenced area.
To the extent it's suggested that Chance attacked the victim in this case, what do you think about that based upon your own experiences with Chance?
I would Chance. I would have taken Chance in the end result that he had to go somewhere. He was, to me, a good dog, very happy, tail wagging dog.
People hear pit bull and they think snarling, growling, aggressive. Was that your experiences with Chance?
Absolutely not. Actually, no.
So you knew Chance's name from the defendant, but you never heard his girlfriend's name.
Correct.
I want to turn your attention, Mr. Stout, to December 17th of 2023. And that day you saw some police and ambulances at the property, right?
Yes.
Did you go to the address on that day before you saw police and medical responders there?
No.
So you were there after the police and medical responders came?
Yes.
And did you see the defendant on that day?
I did.
And where was he, the defendant, when you saw him?
Pretty much the same place that I saw his girlfriend. It was a white plastic chair, like right outside the front door. He was standing with a sheriff.
Was the defendant handcuffed?
No.
And when you saw the defendant that day on December 17th, did he say something to you?
I walked up just to see if any help needed, and he said that she finally did it. She killed herself, pretty much.
So I asked about a particular day, but did you also see the defendant from time to time towards the end of 2023?
Yes.
And how would you describe the defendant's mood at that time from what you saw from him and what you talked to him about?
It was kind of like highs and lows. Like I'd see him, he'd be happy, and then I'd see him, he'd be kind of mellow. That's nothing really out of the ordinary for what I know of Billy. It was just sometimes he was depressed. We had spoken before. That's where the whole working with the firewood came into play. He spoke about like kind of feeling trapped, no way to make money, to leave the property, and was kind of looking for a way out, I would say. But nothing like really out of the ordinary for knowing Billy.
From your interactions with the defendant, did he have a cell phone?
Yes.
And from time to time, did you communicate with him by cell phone,
Yes.
including text messages?
Yes.
So I want to show you what's been previously marked for identification as States Exhibit 9.
Yep, you may.
Mr. Stout, you're familiar with what's on this exhibit, right?
Yes.
And generally, without going into what they say, generally, what are
There, text messages between me and Billy.
and these text messages were text messages all that you received, right? Not that you sent.
Yes, received.
And in terms of a time frame, is this towards the end of 2023?
Yes.
And with respect to what the defendant is texting you, is that consistent with what you saw in his mood and his demeanor during this period of time?
Yes.
Judge Bissonnette and State would offer this, it states Exhibit 9.
Okay.
So admitted.
My colleague, Lisa, says to click that on. And so, Mr. Stowe? Let me start at the top. So these were taken from your cell phone, right?
Yes.
And we have up here a B circled and Billy and Chance. Is that basically a contact?
Yes.
And who again are Billy and Chance?
Billy, Kelly, and Chance, the dog.
And then we have a date that says Wednesday, November 15th at 10:33. This would be November 15th of 2023.
Yes.
And that would be when this strain starts, right? Not necessarily that same day.
Yes.
And there are actually several separate bubbles which represent several separate text messages that you received
Yes.
from the defendant's cell phone.
Yes.
And again, these are all that you
Oh.
received, right?
Yes.
So let me read, and I'll start with the first sentence, and then I'll have a question. Thanks to Kevin, now I'm not going to be able to go anywhere. Now, based on your own experience at the property, who did you take Kevin to be?
Property owner.
Let me read through this in its entirety. I need to go today, all because I closed the gate to keep his animals alive. I get to go hungry and cold and get a guilt trip about the electric bill because I have no way to heat this fucking shit show. I hate my fucking life and I hope I fucking die. I really F, and then there's some asterisks, and there are several of those. This is what was sent to you, right? We're not editing anything out.
Yes. Correct.
I really F asterisk and sick of this B asterisk, F asterisk scenario here when I pay my rent on time every F asterisk month and it makes me F asterisk broke. no matter how much Kevin thinks it doesn't reach his B asterisk, because he knows I only get a certain amount of money. I don't know what lavish life he thinks. You can't read the bottom, but it's, I'm living down here, but it's not like rap for me at all. I'm F asterisk, miserable, have two time, and I keep a smile on my face and stay positive because I have faith in God that things will get better than this. Asterisk, like that for me. I'm scared to death of this winter. Nothing makes sense anymore. And again, this would be consistent with his mood that you saw and experienced during your encounters with him during this period.
Yes. The reason I didn't text back is this was, I would say, a normal thing. That just multiple text messages of like the same thing, but over and over again.
One moment. I think I'm done. No further questions. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Stout, I'm going to ask you some questions about your knowledge about all this. You understand?
Yes.
Okay. Fair to say you're a dog lover?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And that's why you titled the contact information for him Billy and Chance, right?
So I have all my customers like in my phone, and it's hard for me to remember just names. So like if there's anything attached to them that will help me remember that person, that's how I list. So it could be like, a Four Corners area where they live, name in Four Corners, and it helped me remember. And with this, it was Billy and then Chance. I remember as the dog.
Right. You have a fond remembrance of that dog and fond thoughts of that dog, so that helps you remember which Billy it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as Christine Falzone, that's the name of the girlfriend that was living with him. Did you ever ask him her name?
No.
And when you saw her out of the residence that time, she had a cell phone, right?
Yeah.
And a cigarette.
Mhm.
Okay. He wasn't hovering around her.
No.
She was moving freely around.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, fair to say that these texts that the jury is going to be able to look at, they are Billy confiding in you about how depressed he is.
Yes.
About the living conditions he was living in,
Yes.
about winter coming,
Yes.
about being afraid and scared of being cold and poor.
Yes.
In all those texts, does he ever blame Christine?
No.
Does he ever say, hey, she won't get off my back, I got this woman, the source of my troubles?
Never mentioned. Like I said, I didn't even know her name.
Does he ever, other than talking about his financial condition and the weather coming and where he's living, attribute blame to anybody else?
Can you repeat that?
In other words, does he blame her for any of this in these texts to you?
No.
In fact, when you were working with him, right, you said you worked with him on some occasions on that property.
Yep.
He would break off from work with you to go check on her.
Yes. So he did say he had the one time I can remember we were splitting firewood on the wood splitter, and he said that he was worried that his girlfriend he's just depressed and go check on her and let Chance out. So it was like a double, and then he would take off and come back.
So he talked about her considerably, said she was depressed, you need to go check on her.
Well, I don't think it would be said considerably. That's counsel's characterization.
All right, you may continue, counsel.
Yeah, so he said she's depressed, therefore I need to go check on her.
Yes.
And let me go to a quick, because you remember talking to the state police on the day of this, I think it was on the day, no, it was on the 23rd of December in 2023. You talked to the state police?
It was the sheriff and the town police, not the state.
Okay, you talked to the people with the uniforms with the recorder, right?
Recorder?
Tape recorder, digital recorder, your recorded conversation. It's not a trick
Not,
question.
not on the day, right?
Right, on the 23rd.
Okay, yes. Yes, I
Okay.
did talk to the state police, yes. I thought we were speaking to the day.
All right. And you've characterized that when you saw Billy on that day, on the day of the incident, right?
Yes.
You said to the state, when they gave you the direct, that he said that she had killed herself.
Yes, so,
Did he say that?
What's that?
Did he say that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you, if I can, your interview with the state, or I can talk to you about what you said then. They asked you about what happened, and you said he was holding a pill bottle, and I said, "What's up, Billy? Everything all right?" And he said, "She finally did it." And I said, "Did what?" And he's like, "She's gone." And I thought depression, pills, I see in the sheriff's hand, I thought she had overdosed. And then he said that she was foaming at the mouth or something like that. And I look at him and he had blood on his mouth area. Once again, I figured it was mouth to mouth. I had no clue to anything. I don't know if he like played it off like purposefully to make it seem like suicide, but to me that, or maybe was just in my head.
So when I arrived at the property that day and I went to see if everything was all right, where Billy was sitting in the plastic chair and
Yep.
the sheriff was right next to him, when I approached on the other side of the fence, the sheriff was holding a pill bottle. I said, "What's going on? Is there anything I can help with?" And I remember Billy saying, "She finally did it."
Right.
I right now remember him saying, killed her. She finally killed herself. And then because the sheriff was holding the pill bottle, I attributed that to committing suicide. I guess the link in my head, pill bottle, and she finally did it, killed herself, was the same. I don't know.
Okay, so let me know if you want me to show you this so you can read it. But can we agree that on December 23rd, 2023, several days after the incident, you said it was you that jumped to the conclusion that she killed herself, and that he did not say that?
No, he said when I approached and he was wearing, the sheriff was holding the pill bottle. I said, "Is there anything?" And Billy said, like plain as day, she finally did it, and then she killed herself. And then in my head, I attributed the pill bottle to being why or how she did it.
You may.
This is a transcript of your interview with the police and that passage that we're talking about right there. Can you tell me where you told the police that he said that?
That's improper cross-examination impeachment.
Did you ever tell the police that day?
I'll overrule the objection. You can continue.
What am I?
So
You can answer counsel's question. Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
repeat
Stout.
it for you. Thank you, Your Honor. Question is this: can you tell me where in this interaction that we just talked about with the jury that you actually indicated to the police that he made the statement to you that she killed herself?
I don't.
You don't see it there?
No,
Because it's not.
Well,
Yeah.
But-
Counsel needs to let Mr. Stout answer his question. So, Mr.
So
Stout, you can continue your answer.
as I remember it, when I said, "Is everything all right?" Billy said, "She finally did it, and then she killed herself." And because the pill bottle, like I said, that's in previous interactions, splitting firewood and having to leave and go check on her, or the previous interaction, the depression, the pill bottle, and saying she finally did it. I mean,
So you're saying that your memory of those incidents is better now, 2 years later, than it was on the day you gave your recorded statements to the police?
that she's gone. I mean, I'm kind of confused on like the whole question that you're trying to to ask.
In your interview,
Yeah.
you don't ever say that he said she killed herself. You say that I came to this conclusion because I saw the sheriff at the pill bottle, and he says she's gone. She finally did it. You jumped to the conclusion at that point, and what you said to the police at that point on the recorded interview was that, well, I assumed she must have killed herself. Today, you testified to the jury in response to the state's questions directly that no, he looked at me, said she killed herself. Which one is it?
I don't remember the conclusion part that you're talking about where I say I came to the conclusion. But when I walked up to him and I said, "Is everything all right?" Billy said, she finally did it. And then she's gone. Could have been like a addition to what I'm saying now, but Billy definitely said she killed herself.
Despite the fact that you didn't mention it back then.
I don't know verbatim what I said back then.
Well, I gave you verbatim what you said.
I only
back then.
seen a little part of it.
Would you
I-
like to see the deposition?
Well, it's okay, this is cross-examination, but counsel needs to let Mr. Stout finish his answer before
Fair.
proceeding with another question. And Mr. Stout will give counsel the same courtesy and let you finish your question before answering, okay?
Yes, fair.
And-
Would you like to see it again?
I would. And immediately after that, I was there.
Take whatever time you need, look at as many pages as you need.
Yeah, so immediately after, he said he was foaming at the mouth. I mean, I can't say verbatim whether this or the way I'm saying now is correct, but I do remember being shortly cut off by the town police, but saying that she finally did it and she killed herself, I thought is overdose with seeing the pills in the sheriff's hands.
But we can agree, right, that when you had your time to look through the statement that you gave at that time, at that day, 2 years ago, several days removed from the incident, that you did not attribute to him the statement that she killed herself. It's not there, right?
No, speaking of like foaming at the mouth and stuff, I mean, I don't
I'm
know.
not disputing that.
I don't know how.
Let him finish, counsel.
I don't know how you can like overdose or foam at the mouth and attribute that to anything but the pills.
Gotcha. I'm just trying to make sure that we're clear about what the words that came out of his mouth.
Like I said, I remember it as I said today.
Not what you said back in 2023.
I don't, I mean, if that's verbatim what I said, I may have left something out, as in like, in there it says she's gone, but I was cut off by the town police, like at that very moment coming out of that.
Let's talk about that. So, you actually, you were concerned about the way they were treating Mr. Kelly.
No.
Isolated him outside?
At this time?
Didn't you ask some questions about that?
What was that?
Didn't you ask them some questions about that, about what he was doing, about why they had him out there?
So when I walked up, like I said, we spoke, he was in the chair. She's finally, she did it. The cop coming out of the dwelling, instantly started yelling at me. So it wasn't like I had time to even, there was literally those few sentences with me and Billy and then being yelled at by.
Right, and that's what the incident I'm referring to. So they didn't like the fact that you were approaching?
Well, objection.
Rephrase the question. Rephrase the question.
They reacted negatively and forcefully to your approach.
So the sheriff, no, that was standing next to Billy, not at all. We conversated like he was just kind of overseeing Billy, I guess.
Right?
But
Well, again, counsel can let the witness actually answer.
Yeah,
the question.
please do, counsel.
So after speaking briefly with Billy, the local town PD coming out of the dwelling, like when I first arrived there and spoke to Billy and the sheriff, that's the only police officer that I saw. And then the town cop came out of the dwelling and instantly just started yelling at me.
Right. And that's all I'm trying to explain.
Yes.
To get that right. So that particular authority figure, that particular police officer didn't like or reacted forcefully to your presence and ushered you out of their building.
No, so not forcefully. I was on the other side of the fence. Like there was still a fence between me, Billy, and the whole, so the sheriff standing with Billy, and then still a fence between me and the local town cop coming out of the dwelling. And he was probably, I would say, 50 to 75 feet, like to the dwelling. And then like Billy and the sheriff was probably like 10 feet on the other side of the fence. So like, you know, there's still a distance away, but as he came out of the house and was like approach yelling to me, but yeah, it wasn't forcefully, but he was
That's
definitely
what I
authority, like yelling.
That's what I meant. So he appeared unhappy to have you there and tried to hustle you out.
Yes, I mean,
Okay. All right. So, fair to say, in your interactions on the property, when you were interacting with Billy, you never saw him aggressive or argumentative.
no.
Is it correct?
What is it?
In other words, I want to make sure my statements are correct. You never saw him aggressive or argumentative when he was working with you or around you.
No.
You did not see him that way, or my statement is incorrect?
I mean, mellow, depressed, but not like argumentative or mean
All
or
right.
anything like that.
Thank you. And it may be my inartful phrasing of the question. So we're in agreement that he was not aggressive or argumentative with or around you when you were working.
Right.
Correct. Okay. In fact, you took a kindliness to him and saw that he was in dire straits, and you bought him some boots the day before this incident happened,
I did.
because you saw how sad and depressed he was in the winter coming on, and he didn't have properly fitting boots.
So I didn't specifically go out and buy the boots for him, but I was at Track Supply and I knew that he needed boots. And they were on the sale rack. So yes, then I purchased them because I knew he needed them.
And you gave them to him as a gift because you cared.
I did.
Now, you also had other individuals working on that property with you, workers for you.
One in particular, yep.
Okay, who is that?
James Betty.
And other workers would help you occasionally on the property?
Yeah, here and there. There was a guy named Patrick, but maybe once.
And did you supervise them at all times when they were on the property with you?
Not at all times, but I was there also, yes. You want to need some water?
Yes, you certainly. Yeah, can we get some water? Thank you.
While we're doing that, Mr. Kelly's having a little trouble seeing the witness's face. I'm not sure if we can move the TV or have the witness kind of.
Yeah, thank you for noticing.
All right, so there were other workers on or about the property with you during that, how many months, 3 to 5 months you said you worked there?
Yes.
Do you, Would you be aware of any interactions that they may have had with Ms. Falzone or Mr. Kelly?
No.
Do you have particular calculations of what days and times they were on the property?
No.
And as far as the sort of close quarters that these people, that dog, other animals were in this particular dwelling, did you ever go in to the structure where Mr. Kelly and Ms. Falzone lived?
No.
Okay. You did have a chance, you said, to interact, opportunity to interact with Chance, the pit bull.
Yes.
Okay. Fair to say pit bulls are well-muscled dogs?
Yeah.
Okay. So even when they're not aggressive, their physicality is imposing. In other words, one can brush up against you and move your legs a little bit.
Yeah, Chance was a smaller type. It wasn't like very muscular. He was hard to even tell he was a pit bull, but he was he was stocky, I guess.
And there were also wild animals on that property that you sort of had to stay away from, right?
Yes.
And especially speaking, you talked about the ram.
Yes.
Okay, and that was in an enclosure close to the structure?
It was so directly behind the house there was like two pens, I would say. One held the ram and one was just open. That's the one that was open is the pen that when I approached the sheriff and Billy the day sitting in the chair, that was inside that pen. And that's also where I'd see Chance be let out into the open pen.
And you were specifically instructed and learned you had to stay away from that ram for protection of your own health.
I mean, yeah, I'm not really familiar with farm animals like that. It's a big ram. I mean, it's a ram.
In all the time that you dealt with Mr. Kelly, as an old friend, as a sort of daily co-worker with him during this time when he would assist you just on a couple occasions.
Yeah.
Did he ever speak ill of Christine Falzone at any time?
Nope, no.
Did you at any time in all your interaction with him ever witness him being verbally or physically abusive to her?
As I stated, I only seen it at one time, and Billy wasn't even around then. It was just I see her over the hill smoking and talking on the phone. But other than that, there was no other interactions. That's just
That you observed, right?
correct.
All right, thank you.
You have no idea what happened inside that shack.
No.
So you've been kind enough to meet with me a couple of times, right?
Yes.
But you haven't refused to speak with the defense, have you?
No.
You actually spoke to a defense investigator over the phone and gave a full interview recently, right?
I did. At my house, I came home, had a card on my door from investigator, and after calling, I spoke to her on the phone.
So let's review part of that. It's page 2 of the defense report. So correct me if I'm wrong. Billy was seated outside in a white plastic chair, and you're a police officer. The police officer with Billy was holding a prescription pill bottle. Billy said to Jeremiah something like, "She finally did it, she killed herself," which Jeremiah interpreted to mean that Billy's girlfriend had overdosed or taken her own life. Did I read that correct?
Yes.
That's from the defense report?
Yes.
And again, you really talk to anybody who wanted to question you about this case, right?
I saw it. I mean, after I got the card on the door, I called multiple times and spoke pretty lengthy to the investigator.
And again, the woman you saw once over the course of several months,
Yeah. Yes. One.
based on what you saw, do you know if she was actually depressed?
No. No.
Do you know whether what the defendant claimed that he was checking up on her because she was depressed was truthful?
No, I don't know.
He could have been checking up on her because he was controlled, right?
I honestly, I don't know what he was checking up on. I went right back to work. So
To the extent she even was depressed, do you know why she would be depressed?
Hang on just a second. Is there an objection?
The question was already answered. I was objecting to his request for speculation.
Okay.
To the extent she was even depressed, do you know why she would be depressed?
Objection to the request for speculation.
It's, do you know why she would be depressed? I'm not asking you to speculate as to the source of.
Yeah, I think I feel more comfortable to rephrase it. Do you have any reason, if Ms. Falzone was depressed, would you have any information to know why?
other than what Billy told me, no.
So, Mr. Stout, thank you for talking with us. I do appreciate that, talking to my investigator. You remember the date of that interview?
Not off my head, no.
It was October 7th, 2025, so a couple weeks ago. That made sense?
Yeah,
Okay. In that recorded statement you gave to the authorities was 6 days after this incident on December 23rd, 2023. That sound fair?
yeah.
All right, thank you.
May Mr. Stout be released?
You certainly may. Mr. Stout, thank you very much for being here today and for your testimony. You're free to step down and you're free to go, sir.
Thank you.
All right, I think appropriate time to take our lunch break.
Sure.
Everybody
So
okay with
next
that?
is the medical examiner, which would be.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to start that one right now. So, okay, everybody, we will take our lunch break. Please be back here by 1:15. Give you a couple extra minutes today, so we can come back in at quarter past. Please remember my usual instructions, not to discuss the case with anyone. Don't read anything about the case or listen to anything about the case. Don't do any of your own research or investigation about the case. Don't look anything up. Have a nice lunch, and we'll see you at 1:15. Thank you.
All eyes on the jury.
And I think we need a ruling on States 32, which we had, I think the court was just waiting to determine.
Yes, thank you. That's the autopsy photo of the fetus.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I have looked at the audiovisual equipment that the state has. I don't. It's considerably smaller than a jumbotron. It's about the size of a television you might have in your home. It's a good, I'd say 12 to 15 feet from the nearest juror, and probably, 3 or 4 times further than that from the, I'd say about 3 times further than that from the farthest juror. And I don't think so long as the image doesn't remain up there unnecessarily while the testimony has moved on to other topics, I would allow that to be shown. And I can't say right now that I can't say right now that there's any undue prejudice from showing that. Obviously, the presentation of it will be subject to the court's ongoing discretionary control. But
Understood. And I don't intend to keep it up there any longer than it takes to ask questions about the significance of the photo to the witness.
sure, okay, thank you very much. So to that extent, the motion.
We could note our objection now for the record.
Yep.
If that could be also considered a standing objection.
It certainly can. Your objection is noted.
Thank you. I think there is also states 33, just as a reminder, was only marked for ID.
We already were not
Okay, great.
Okay. All right. We'll bring the jurors in, please. You can certainly, bring him forward. So, Doctor, after the jurors come in, I will ask the counsel for the state to call their next witness. They'll then call your name, and I'll ask you to stand up. And counsel, I don't have to swear to it. If you prefer to administer the oath, I'm fine to do that. So that's you wish.
I'm happy to have you continue this.
Okay.
That's what we've been doing.
All right, very good. Thank you. So if you would just remain standing for the jurors as they come in. Of course. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. I hope you all had a good lunch. And the state may call its next witness. So I see we already have it here.
The state calls Dr. Mitchell Weinberg.
Thank you very much. Doctor, would you please remain standing and raise your right hand? You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes, sir. Thank you. Ladies.
Dr. Weinberg, if you could start by introducing yourself and spelling your name for the court reporter, please.
Sure. My name is Dr. Mitchell Weinberg, Mitchell, Weinberg.
Can everybody hear him well? Could you pull the mic closer to you a bit?
Sure.
And where do you work?
I work at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, which is in Concord.
Is that better? Okay. And what is your position with the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner?
I am the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner, which means I'm one of the forensic pathologists on staff with the Medical Examiner's office.
How long have you been Deputy Chief Medical Examiner?
About 5.5 years now.
And what are your general duties as the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner?
My main duty is as one of the staff forensic pathologists, I take my share of call and associated cases. That means I oversee medical legal death investigations that fall under our office's jurisdiction under New Hampshire law. And a large part of that work means that I am conducting postmortem examinations on individuals who have died for the primary purpose of determining that patient's cause and manner of death.
Did you have any positions in medical examiners' offices before you came to New Hampshire?
Yes, the New Hampshire position's my second job out of training. Previously, I had worked in Alberta, Canada, as an associate medical examiner, a staff forensic pathologist. I worked there for about 8 years before taking the job in New Hampshire.
And can you briefly describe for us the education you received to begin working in this field?
Sure. So to become a forensic pathologist, I attended university at the University of Florida, earned a bachelor's degree in 2004. Then I went straight into medical school at the University of South Florida, earning my MD in 2008. Then I did my pathology residency at Ohio State, finishing that training in 2011. And then I did the forensic pathology fellowship, which is the subspecialty training that one undertakes in this country to become a forensic pathologist. I did that during the 2011-2012 academic medical year in Baltimore, Maryland. And then finished my training and took the job in Alberta.
Can you please explain for the jury what an autopsy is?
Sure. An autopsy is a surgical-like procedure on a deceased individual for various purposes, but the main one being to determine that patient's cause and manner of death. It's a very detailed and extensive process, and I can get into more detail, but it involves an external examination of the body, documentation of the presence or absence of various injuries, as well as non-injurious findings, and then continuing with an internal examination, i.e. dissection, into the body to examine, at a minimum, the head, neck, chest, abdomen, and pelvic regions of the body. And again, the purpose of the internal portion of the exam is to document the presence or absence of injuries, as well as underlying and associated medical findings that may or may not be present.
How many autopsies have you performed over the course of your career?
At this point, it's well over 2,000, probably closer to 2,500.
And when you conduct an autopsy, how do you document your findings?
There's various ways. One is handwritten notes. That's less formal. That's something I use to generate the formal autopsy report. That's probably what most people think about. So for each case that I oversee, I do generate an autopsy report that documents in detail and in medical language my examination findings. Additionally, it's pretty standard in 2025 when digital photography is so ubiquitous and easy and cheap, that photographic documentation of examination findings is also very standard in my line of work. So those are probably the three main things: handwritten notes, formal autopsy report, and case photographs. There's some other things, but those are the main ones.
Over the course of the thousands of autopsies you said you've performed, have you examined various types of wounds?
Oh, sure. Over 14, 15 years, you pretty much see everything multiple times. So yes, I've examined all sorts of different injuries. If you can think of it, I've probably seen it at least a few times, if not many, many times.
Does that include blunt force injuries?
Yes, blunt force injuries or blunt force trauma are extremely, extremely common in the work of any forensic pathologist. I'll stop there. Yes, many times.
Are you certified in any areas of medicine?
Yes, I am board certified by the American Board of Pathology in anatomic and forensic pathology.
So you've used the term forensic pathology a few times now, and I want to break that down. What is pathology?
Pathology is the branch of medicine that's concerned primarily, think about it as the laboratory type of sciences. Pathologists are often known as the doctor's doctor because generally pathologists don't see patients themselves, but rather they provide support and information to allow other doctors to do their jobs. So, for example, the many pathologists that you would see working in a hospital are looking at tissue samples that have been taken at the time of surgery or in a clinic, and then saying, this is cancer, this is not cancer, this is the stage of cancer, all sorts of things along those lines. That is anatomic pathology, broadly speaking.
And what is forensic pathology?
So forensic pathology is a subset or a branch off of anatomic pathology. It is the area of anatomic pathology that is concerned with autopsy pathology, so postmortem examinations, and specifically the forensic side of autopsy pathology is in the performance of forensic autopsies that may be of interest to areas of criminality or the justice system, as well as to a lesser extent, and we're not really going to talk about that much here today, but also there's a public health component of the work that we do, but that doesn't tend to get as much attention.
And you've already mentioned that when you're conducting an autopsy and acting as a forensic pathologist, determining cause and manner of death is something that you do. Can you tell us what cause of death means in your profession?
Yes. So the cause of death is a disease process, an injury or group of injuries, or substance toxicity that ultimately leads to a patient's death, no matter how long the sequence of time or how brief the sequence of time. So common medical examples would be things like a stroke, various forms of cancer, various forms of heart disease, drug overdoses, and I would be more specific, saying what drug, or various types of injuries such as gunshot wounds, stab wounds, or blunt force injuries. Those are just a few small examples of cause of death.
What about manner?
Manner of death refers to the certifier, which, to be clear in this case, is me. It is the certifier's best opinion on the circumstances around a death. So whereas cause of death is free text, I can literally write or say whatever I want. Manner of death is a very defined menu of only 5 choices in the state of New Hampshire. And my options are natural, suicide, accident, homicide, or undetermined. And it is the certifier, so me in my cases, opinion relating to the circumstances of how that death occurred, and for anything non-natural, how the injury may have occurred.
In what circumstance would a death be certified as a homicide?
Generally speaking, forensic pathologists will certify a death as a homicide when it is a death due to injury caused to a decedent by another individual. That's sort of the simplest way to think about it. It can get a lot more complicated, and I'd rather not get into all the exceptions because it starts to get a little confusing pretty quickly. But the general way to think of it is somebody has died of trauma or some sort of injury that was caused unto them by another individual.
What about accident? What are some circumstances that death can be accidental?
So accident essentially refers and is used for injury type deaths or overdose type deaths that aren't homicides or suicides. So car accidents, drownings without any sort of intent. I mean, essentially any injury that has occurred without some element of intent or malice with respect to that injury is going to be classified as an accidental manner of death.
When would a manner of undetermined be offered?
Undetermined is what we use when there is insufficient evidence to distinguish between 2 or more of the other manners of death. The death is often not natural, although there are even, it's clearly not overtly natural, but it's when the certifier is unable to distinguish between multiple other options. So for example, if somebody dies of a prescription pain medication overdose, and as the forensic pathologist, I can't tell if that person intentionally took too much of their pain meds, or if they just took a little bit extra because their back pain was particularly bad that day. So in that kind of scenario, the most honest opinion I could render might be undetermined, and that's what I would put for the manner of death, even if the cause of death was clearly, say, oxycodone toxicity in that hypothetical.
Dr. Weinberg, have you ever been qualified as an expert in forensic pathology before?
Yes.
About how many times?
It's probably in the neighborhood of 100 between Canada and the United States by now.
And specifically in New Hampshire?
It's not 100 in New Hampshire, but I've been qualified, well over a dozen times, I think, at this point in New Hampshire.
Your Honor, at this point, the state offers Dr. Weinberg as an expert in forensic pathology.
No objection.
You so recognize.
So Dr. Weinberg, did you conduct an autopsy of Christine Falzone on December 18th of 2023?
Yes.
Was Christine pregnant at the time you conducted your autopsy?
Yes.
Did you also then go on to conduct an autopsy of Christine's unborn child that day?
Yes.
As part of that process, did you send samples out for toxicology testing?
Yes.
What is toxicology testing?
Toxicology testing is laboratory testing that is meant to determine what substances are or are not present in a particular sample at a particular moment in time. It is a standard part of forensic pathology, in part because many hundred deaths per year in the state of New Hampshire are directly drug related, and there is no way to diagnose that without the toxic. Well, I shouldn't say no way. It's very difficult, and you generally don't make that diagnosis without the toxicology testing. So it is a routine part of the work that we do.
And did you send samples out to toxicology for both Christine and the baby?
I did, yes.
Did you also send out samples for review to a neuropathologist?
Yes.
What does a neuropathologist do?
A neuropathologist is another subspecialty of anatomic pathology. And this is a particular type of pathologist that has additional training and expertise in diseases of the central nervous system. In a forensic context, we often utilize a neuropathologist to make certain diagnoses that I, as a forensic pathologist, don't have the expertise to do. So, for example, diagnosing Parkinson's disease or certain neurodegenerative disorders. But also, they do admittedly have more expertise than I do in the specific examination of brain and central nervous system tissue. And so in certain cases, a pathologist may elect to have that consultative exam performed. And I did do so in this case, primarily out of concern for being as thorough as possible.
And did you review and consider both the toxicology report and the neuropathology report as part of coming to your ultimate conclusions in this case?
Yes.
Where were your autopsies conducted on December 18th?
We have a facility in Concord Hospital.
Do medical examiners sometimes go out to the scene in certain cases before conducting an autopsy?
Well, when you say medical examiners, I'll ask you to clarify. Do you mean me,
So,
medical
yeah,
examiners, or my
someone in
colleague?
Your position as an associate or deputy chief medical examiner?
Only very, very rarely. I can count on one hand how many times I've been to a scene in New Hampshire. It's just not the general structure that we utilize in this state, and most jurisdictions follow a similar model where the pathologist, him or herself, only very rarely goes to the scene of a death.
Did you go to the scene in this case?
I did not, no.
And it sounds like that's not unusual.
No, not at all.
So I want to start now with the autopsy of Christine before we move on to the baby. How tall was Christine?
Okay, at this point, if I may, I'd like to just refer to the autopsy report so that I can make sure I give these numbers accurately.
And I'll
Sure.
just check if there's any objection to that. No? Okay, please.
So Ms. Falzone was 5 feet 1 inches tall, or 155 centimeters.
And how much did she weigh?
139 pounds, which is 63 kilograms.
As part of your autopsy, did that include both an external and an internal examination of Christine?
Yes, it did.
Is it fair to say that an external examination involves you viewing the outside of the body to document any injuries you can see on the outside?
Yes, the external exam is exactly what it sounds like. It is what I can see and document and measure before any surgical type incisions are made into the body.
And we're going to go into more detail as we walk through what you documented in a minute, but I want to make sure we have a few terms clear first. What is blunt force trauma?
Blunt force trauma refers to a very broad class of injury that generally involves either an individual being struck by something, with something, or the individual striking something relatively immobile. So if somebody, for example, was slammed into a wall or a countertop or something like that, that would cause blunt force trauma, as would punches, kicks, blows from a weapon. Those would all cause what I would subsequently describe as blunt force trauma or blunt force injuries.
What is a contusion?
A contusion is basically just a slightly fancier word for a bruise.
And when a person has a contusion or a bruise, is the discoloration on that person's skin that we see because blood has now moved to that area of the body?
It's not so much that it's moved to that area so much as the trauma causes seepage of blood outside the vascular system and collecting of that blood beneath the skin, and we visually perceive that as a bruise, but it is because of blood collecting in response to the injury.
And through your observation and examinations of bruises, are you able to tell how long ago a bruise happened, to date it in any way?
Sort of is the honest and simplest answer. Certainly not with the level of specificity and precision that some TV shows might have one believe, or that police and lawyers might want me to be able to do. There are certain broad characteristics, and at this stage in my career, I basically think of bruises or contusions as either being fairly fresh appearing, i.e. they occurred relatively recently prior to that patient's death, or a little bit older with some signs of healing having occurred. But within each of those categories, dating them more precisely is just not really, it's just not doable. So I can't differentiate whether a bruise occurred 5 minutes prior to a patient's death or say 90 minutes or 3 hours. They're all going to look the same to me, whether grossly or even microscopically, if a microscopic exam were to be performed.
And you mentioned the sort of best you can do to separate is fresher or older and healing. What do you start to see when a bruise is older and healing that would differentiate that for you?
The coloration starts to change. So this is something that has been studied over the years by forensic pathologists because it has, relevance, right, in these kinds of legal settings. And what we know is that once you start to see some greenish to yellowish discoloration in a bruise grossly, i.e. with the naked eye, if you can start to see that greenish to yellow discoloration, you can feel pretty confident the bruise is at least 18 to 24 hours old. Beyond that, or more precise than that, again, not really doable based on my understanding of the literature and my practice over the years.
So is it fair to say that if you're seeing that green color and stages of healing, that 18 hours is sort of the cutoff? So if you're not seeing that, you couldn't tell if it happened 5 minutes ago or 17 hours ago, but it's likely beyond that.
That's the general idea, yes.
What is a laceration?
A laceration is another type of blunt force type injury. So it's caused by the same kinds of things that cause contusions, those same mechanisms of injury. But now a laceration is instead a shearing type of injury. So it's essentially tearing of tissue as a result of blunt force trauma, and the trauma essentially exceeding the tensile strength of that tissue. So oftentimes lacerations will be visible externally because they happen at the skin surface, or on the head or on the face. But you can actually have lacerations as well in some cases. So it's just a tearing or shearing type of injury.
During your external examination of Christine, did you observe numerous bruises and lacerations all over her body?
Yes.
So I want to start to walk through those findings with you now, and we'll go from top of the body down. So we'll start with the head.
Okay.
What injuries did you observe to Christine's head?
So again, just for the record, I'm looking at my report because you don't memorize this kind of thing in my line of work. You rely on your notes and your documentation, but she has an abrasion on her forehead on the left side. She has contusions going around each the left and the right eye. There's a bruise on her left cheek. There are lacerations on both the upper and lower lip mucosa. That's the kind of inner soft part of the lips. And then she had four discrete areas of bruising to the undersurface of the scalp. So basically on the underside of the head. Well, sorry, you said external, didn't you?
I did. But
Sorry.
My next question was, were there any internal
Sorry.
injuries to Christine's head?
Sorry. Yes, there were. Sorry. My report's organized by body region, not external versus internal. So yes, there were four discrete areas of bruising to the undersurface of the scalp. So to be clear, these were not injuries that I could see externally, but internally when I looked at the undersurface of the scalp, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's the under part of the skin of your head. There were bruises on the right front, the right side, left side, and towards the back of the head.
Was there bleeding associated with those injuries?
Well, the subgaleal contusions themselves were bleeding, yes. There was not associated intracranial bleeding. So there was not bleeding inside the skull itself, no.
Can you explain that a little bit for us? So you just said subgaleal hemorrhages, that the bruises in the different areas you were just talking about?
Yes, subgaleal is the more specific medical term for the bruising to the undersurface of the scalp. So, right, there are different anatomic layers between the skin surface and the inside, and as forensic pathologists, we are very precise in our descriptions of where exactly these injuries are. They mean different things, they're interpreted differently, so location matters. Ms. Falzone's injuries were to the undersurface of her scalp. The skull itself was intact. Her skull was not fractured. And the skull is removed as part of the autopsy procedure to allow access to the brain. And when that occurred, there was not any bleeding inside the skull itself. There was no intracranial hemorrhage.
We talked earlier about how you document your autopsies, and you mentioned photographs. We're going to go through a series of photos now as we describe the injuries. Are
Okay.
those photos that you took during the course of your autopsy?
I believe those are the ones we're using here today, yes.
And they've been reviewed by you prior to trial?
Yes, I certainly reviewed my own autopsy photos numerous times in preparation for court today, yes.
So I'm going to put up first State's Exhibit 11 on the screen. Do we see some of the injuries that you've described, the external injuries that you've described to Christine's head here?
Some of them, yes.
And I'm going to put up now State's Exhibit 12, which is the picture on the left, and Exhibit 13, which is the picture on the right. Do these pictures depict the injuries surrounding Christine's eyes that you talked about?
Sort of. The one on the right, that is the bruising around Ms. Falzone's right eye. The picture on the left, the one associated with number 12, that's more showing, and the scale's right underneath, that's an abrasion on the left side of her forehead.
Okay, so that little measuring device there, that's the abrasion above the bruising to the eye that you saw.
Yes, that's bruising on the left side of the forehead, approximately in the general region that I'm pointing to on myself.
And you mentioned a laceration to the right eye. Is this the laceration you're talking about here?
Yes, I described that injury overall as a lacerated contusion. Essentially, it means there's a bruise with a little laceration contained within the bruise. Yes.
Would there have been bleeding associated with that lacerated contusion?
I would have expected some bleeding. Yes.
So now I've put up State's Exhibit 14. Does this depict the bruise to Christine's left cheek that you described?
Yes, it does.
So now let's move down from the head to the torso, and we will start with the chest. And we'll start with the external injuries. Did Christine have any bruises to her chest?
Yes.
Can you describe that for us?
So on the upper central chest, you could actually even start to see it in one of the photographs, but it's much more demonstrable in some of the other photographs that I took. There's a fairly large bruise to the upper central chest. This one is about a foot in diameter, so 30 centimeters or just under 1 foot in width. So this is a large area of bruising to the upper central chest. But then there are also additional bruises on the right breast, bruising on the right flank, and that's the chest. So I'll stop there.
Now with respect to internal injuries, did Christine also have rib fractures?
Yes, she did.
Can you describe those for us?
Yes, she had rib fractures on both sides. On the left side, the third and the fourth rib were fractured towards the front of the body, and then the seventh and the eighth ribs were fractured more towards the flank. And on the right side, the seventh rib was injured over towards the flank side.
So is that a total of 5 separate fractures?
Yes, 5 fresh appearing rib fractures were identified. Yes.
And you just said fresh appearing. What do you mean by that?
Well, I just want to distinguish because I did also identify some fracture calluses, but those were very clearly old rib fractures that Miss Falzone must have suffered at some point substantially earlier in her life that had long healed up and have nothing to do with why she died or anything that may have happened, in the hours prior to her death.
So you're able to sort of tell by the level of healing you see in a fracture how recent or old it is?
Yes. Yeah, the difference between a fresh rib fracture and fracture callus it's not difficult to make that distinction at all. They look very different.
And I'm going to put up now State's Exhibit 15 on the screen. Does that depict the large contusion you described to Christine's chest?
Yes, it does.
And could these injuries, the bruise that we're looking at in the exhibit right now, or the rib fractures that we just talked about, be the result of someone even improperly performing CPR?
I don't think so. It was something I considered. There's even a small comment in the language of my autopsy report that's meant to address that. So the lateral rib fractures, the ones that are closer to the flanks, those I'm quite confident saying just no, those can't be from CPR. Similarly, I don't think the bruise is from CPR. I see CPR related abrasion and to a lesser extent bruising all the time. I mean, like literally multiple times a week kind of thing, because so many patients get CPR as part of a resuscitative effort. It just doesn't look like this. Pattern recognition, injury pattern recognition is just such a core part of forensic pathology. This is not what CPR looks like on the chest.
If I told you that a Lucas machine, so one of the sort of automatic mechanical CPR machines was used, does that change your opinion at all?
No. The Lucas device leaves a particular circular type of pattern. There may be a very tiny central region that might correlate to the Lucas, but The more peripheral parts, no, I don't think so.
And is this that sort of circular region that might have correlated right there?
That part could be from the lucus, yes, but the surrounding part, that wouldn't be from the lucus, I don't believe, no.
Or traditional?
Or an individual using their own body to do chest compressions, no.
So let's move on to the rest of the torso. You started to talk a little bit about injuries to her flank. So what additional injuries did you document on the rest of her torso?
So there were also numerous areas, there were multiple areas of bruising on the abdomen, both on the left and the right sides. Various sizes, all similar aged appearing, but just different size bruises on the left and right sides of the abdomen. There were also various bruises on the left and right sides of the back, as well as the back towards the top, towards the middle, and towards the lower portion of the back. And then there were also internal injuries in the abdomen as well.
So now I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 16 on the left and Exhibit 17 on the right. Exhibit 17 is a close-up image, but do these photographs show the bruising to Christine's right flank and abdomen?
Some of them, yes. This is some of the injury to the right flank, and to a lesser extent, you can kind of start to see some of the right abdominal bruising as well.
And in the close-up picture here, it looks like we sort of have two distinct lines of bruises here. Is that consistent with a pattern injury?
I described this, I believe, I think the specific wording I used was vaguely patterned or something to that. Yes, vaguely patterned. That is the wording I used. It certainly raises that suggestion. It's by no means a definitive example of a patterned type of injury, but it raised that question as I was doing the examination and as I was reviewing my examination photos and putting together my autopsy report, that it may well be a patterned contusion.
And what is a pattern?
A pattern contusion, that's just a term we forensic pathologists will use when there is a bruise or an injury that we think reflects what caused it. So a really overt example might be if a pedestrian was run over by a vehicle and you see a tire mark. That would be a patterned type of injury. But there's other types of patterned injuries as well. And this particular injury with the two lines and the clearing in the middle, it is suggestive of a possible patterned injury.
Do you have any idea what type of thing or instruments could have caused that type of pattern?
If it is a pattern injury, it would be due to either a blow with an elongated type of object or the patient being thrown with some sort of force to cause the bruising into, say, like a countertop or some sort of edge. I could see either of those things causing this type of patterned injury, possibly.
And just for reference on State's Exhibit 16, which is the one on the left, just to orient the jurors, is this Christine's right leg here?
Yes, that's her right thigh.
And then this is her abdomen?
Correct.
And we see some of the contusions to her abdomen here.
Yes, some of them are visible in this photograph.
So now I'm going to show State's Exhibit 18 and 19. Do these depict additional bruises to the top and the left side of the abdomen?
Yes, these are the kind of low magnification type photographs I take that are meant not so much to highlight individual injuries, but to show an overall distribution of where the injuries are on the body for sort of clarity and anatomic reference of where they are, not so much to focus on any one individual injury like you see in those higher magnification photographs with the scale.
And we can see in this photo here on the left, State's Exhibit 18, Christine's stomach is clearly distended. Is that a result of anything other than her pregnancy?
I don't believe so, no. I believe her abdomen looks this way, this very protuberant state, because she was pregnant when she died.
You mentioned a little briefly ago, she also had contusions to her back. Can you describe that for us?
Yes. So, like I said, there's a bruise. There's a bruise to the left side of the upper back, the right side of the upper back, the upper central back, the right side of the middle of the back, and the left side of the lower back had 2 discrete bruises.
After someone dies, can something called lividity occur?
It can and generally does.
What is lividity?
Lividity is just the postmortem settling of blood after a person dies, right? After somebody dies, you don't have a circulating heartbeat and physical forces start to take over. So gravity will take over, and whatever part of the body is dependent, blood will start to pool in that part of the body. And that is something we forensic pathologists call lividity or livor mortis, to use the more Latin term.
So I'm going to show now States Exhibit 20. Do these depict the injuries to Christine's back?
The injuries are visible. There's also other findings visible, but some of the bruises that I've described are visible in this photograph, yes.
Do you see any lividity in this photograph?
Yes, there's some lividity present as well.
Can you tell us the difference between the lividity you see and then the actual bruises?
The lividity tends to be the somewhat lighter pinkish appearing material. So like in her right flank, for example, that, and on her right thigh, that's just lividity. That's not injury.
That would be sort of this area.
No, further down in the photograph. No, further down.
Okay.
Keep going down. No, down like like that kind of stuff. That's just lividity. But if you look behind the right shoulder, for example, there's a darker area that's more concrete, more isolated. That I don't believe is lividity. It's a contusion. So
And all this that we see in the upper back, are those all appear to be contusions?
not all of them. No, some of it is lividity. Some of them are contusions.
Did you also document injuries to Christine's arms and legs?
Yes, I did.
And we'll start with the arms. What did you observe on her left arm?
So there are lots of discrete bruises to the extremities. I'm not sure, do you want me to try and go through all of them or just give more of an overview?
Please go through all of them.
Okay. So on the left upper extremity, there's bruising at the front of the left shoulder involving the left arm. So that's the area between the shoulder and the elbow. I documented approximately 10 individual bruises. There were also 2 bruises to the left forearm, so that's the region between the elbow and the wrist. On the front of the left forearm were 2 bruises. To the back of the left forearm, there are around at least 5 discrete bruises. And I say around or approximately is because sometimes you look at a photograph and it's hard to kind of decide where exactly one bruise ends and the other one begins. So that's why I'm using that kind of wording. I wouldn't get too caught up in precise numbers. But so on the palm of the left hand, there's an area of multiple bruises. I counted around 4. And then on the back surface of the left hand, or the dorsal side, I document 8 discrete different bruises, just involving different parts to the back side of the left hand.
So I'm going to show you now States Exhibit 21, which is on the left, and 22, which is on the right. Do those pictures depict the injuries to Christine's left arm that you just talked about?
Some of them, not exactly the left arm, but the left upper extremity in general, yes. So the picture on the right, that's clearly the forearm, because I can see the hand. So, but these are representative photographs of some of the contusions involving the left upper extremity, yes.
And now we're looking at States Exhibit 23 and 24. Do these photographs show some of the injuries to her left hand you talked about?
Yes, they do.
Dr. Weinberg, what are defensive wounds?
Defensive wounds or defensive injuries are a concept that forensic pathologists will think about, whereby an individual has injuries to certain parts of the body that often are sustained as that individual is trying to defend him or herself. We tend to see them in the context of either blunt force trauma cases where somebody's being assaulted and there is just a human instinctual reaction to try and protect more core parts of the body by using one's extremities to shield the blows. But we also sometimes see these kinds of injuries, and to be clear, that's not what we're talking about here, but in the context of sharp force trauma cases, where if somebody is being attacked and stabbed, the same idea takes hold, that the individual will try and use their extremities, often their upper extremities, to shield more critical parts of the body, right? I mean, it's worse to get stabbed in the neck, for example, than the forearm, that kind of thing.
Could these injuries to Christine's left hand be consistent with defensive wounds?
Some of them, yes.
Okay, which ones?
Well, certainly the ones on the dorsal surface, so the backside, those very well could be. That's a very common, but I suppose the palmar surface as well. I mean, people, there's nothing stopping an individual from turning the forearm and the wrist 180 degrees, such that the palm could be. So it's not specific for that kind of injury, but these injuries certainly could be defensive in nature, yes.
So let's now talk about the right arm. What injuries did you document to Christine's right arm?
So it's going to be very similar, just slightly differing numbers, but essentially it's the same sort of thing where there are numerous bruises extending from the shoulder all the way to the hand. The arm itself has 3 contusions. The forearm, on the backside, the posterior of the right forearm, I document 2 separate contusions. On the wrist is a bruise, and then on the right hand, about 5 discrete bruises. And on the right side, they are all primarily on the back side, not the palmar side.
So now I'm going to show you States Exhibit 25 on the right and 26 on the left. Do these show some of the injuries to the right arm you just described?
These are some of the injuries to the right upper extremity, yes.
And now States Exhibit 27, does this picture show some of the injuries to the right hand?
Yes, this is a pretty good photograph showing the injuries involving the outer, or the back, the dorsal surface of the right hand.
And again, could the injuries to the outer portion of the right hand be consistent with defensive wounds?
They certainly could be, yes.
Did you also observe injuries to Christine's left leg?
Yes, there are additional bruises involving the left lower extremity, yes.
Can you describe those for us?
Yes, on the front of the left thigh. So when I say thigh, I mean the region between the hip and the knee. There are 3 bruises. And then on the front of the left leg, when I say leg, I mean the portion of the lower extremity between the knee and the ankle. There are approximately 10 abrasions and contusions on that front of the left leg or left shin kind of region. And additionally, on the back of the left leg, so like the calf kind of region, is another bruise.
So I'm going to show you now States Exhibit 28 and 29 up on the screen. Do these photographs depict the injuries you described to the left leg?
These are some of the injuries involving the left lower extremity. Yes.
And the jurors have heard a little bit from sort of emergency medical personnel about what an IO is. Is that this little yellow tab right there?
Yes, that's an intraosseous catheter. It's essentially a needle that gets drilled into one of the bones in the leg. It allows paramedics to get rapid access to the patient's vascular system to give medicines, because getting an IV is slower. This can be done very quickly, is my understanding.
So that's something that the ENTs would have done. That has nothing to do with your office.
Correct. That was present when Ms. Falzone came into our facility. I'm quite sure it's treatment related. And honestly, at this stage, I sort of mentally just subtract it out because I know it's treatment related findings.
And now I'm going to move to States Exhibit 30 and 31. Do these photographs depict injuries you documented to Christine's right leg?
Yes. Now these are some of there were a few injuries as well on the right lower extremity, and these photographs document that, along with the presence of the intraosseous catheter in the upper right shin.
So for all of the bruises that we've just covered, head to toe, did each of those come with at least a degree of associated blood loss?
Yes.
And during the internal examination of Christine, did you also discover she suffered from internal bleeding?
Yes, she did.
Can you explain that for us?
Yes. So after completing the external portion of the examination, I proceeded to the internal portion. And that involves incisions dissecting into the patient's torso for the purposes of the examination. And immediately upon entering the abdominal cavity, I realized there was blood present. The medical term for that is hemoperitoneum. That is not normal. That is not supposed to be there. And the total volume that I ultimately collected and documented of free blood in Ms. Falzone's belly was 500 milliliters. Sorry, I use metric measurements, but 500 milliliters of acute blood in the abdominal cavity.
Are you able to quantify that for us in any way? I mean, how significant is 500 milliliters?
It's a decent volume of blood. I mean, just for, I guess, comparison's sake, think about a 500 milliliter bottle of water that you would buy at the store. That size vessel was completely full of blood, of free blood that was in the abdominal cavity. It's not, a massive volume. I certainly have seen more in other cases, but it's not an insignificant volume either. It's a significant blood loss, in my opinion.
Do you have any way of estimating what Christine's total blood volume would have been before she died?
Somewhat. There are calculations that can be done based on a patient's size that allow for an estimate of a patient's total blood volume. And I did do those calculations in my preparations for trial for this case.
So what approximately would Christine's total blood volume have been?
So the honest answer is I'm not sure. And so I did the calculation two different ways. One, I did just based straight on her weight, not accounting for the pregnancy. And that calculation comes to approximately 4 liters. So think of it, right? A 2-liter bottle of beverage, 2 of those was her total blood volume in that calculation. However, Ms. Falzone very clearly was pregnant, and there are alternative calculations that should be used in pregnant women. And when I put those numbers into the calculators that that are out there for this kind of calculation, the total blood volume comes to approximately 6 liters.
So 500 milliliters for, using the calculation, the higher calculation accounting for pregnancy would be a little less than a tenth of her total blood volume.
Correct, yes. Just of free blood in the abdominal cavity, to be clear. That is not what I'm saying is her total blood loss from the injuries.
So just pooled sitting in her abdomen.
Correct.
Did she also have bleeding into the soft tissue around her abdomen?
I wouldn't call it around her abdomen. I would say within her abdomen, yes. So without getting too detailed into the anatomy for various reasons, there are soft tissues internally that we have, and when they are injured, blood will collect in and around those soft tissues. It's not, you can't measure it the same way you can free fluid, right? With the free fluid, I literally am able to put it into a measuring vessel and get a measurement. When there's blood loss into tissue, it is much, much more difficult to calculate the exact volume. It's not possible as far as I'm aware. But in this case, there very clearly was additional significant bleeding into the soft tissues within Ms. Falzone's abdomen.
So based on everything we've discussed so far, all of the external bruises you observed, the internal to the head, the internal to the abdomen, what was the mechanism of Christine's death?
I think the most likely mechanism for why Ms. Falzone died was blood loss in this case. The rib fractures wouldn't have helped, but rib fractures generally don't kill you that quickly. So I'm skeptical that would account for the mechanism. But given the totality of findings, I do think that blood loss or exsanguination, to use the medical term, is the most likely mechanism of why Ms. Falzone died.
So just the sheer volume of blood loss across all of the injuries to her body.
The totality of blood loss between the free blood in the belly, the soft tissue bleeding within the torso, and the bleeding into the roughly 100 discrete bruises that I documented on her body. The totality of that blood loss, I believe, was too much for her body to compensate for, such that she died. Yes.
And how does blood loss cause death? Do your organs just stop functioning if there's no blood flowing to them? Not enough blood?
I mean, essentially, yes. Without an adequate supply of fresh oxygenated blood, organs cannot function. The blood carries nutrients and oxygen and carries away waste products, and we need a minimum volume of blood circulating within our vascular system to stay alive. The body can obviously compensate for some degree of blood loss. It's why people don't die every time they have a small cut. But there comes a point for each individual where that blood loss exceeds that patient's body ability to compensate for the blood loss, and cardiac arrest takes place.
Are there certain signs you look for while conducting an autopsy that death could have occurred by blood loss?
Yes, in part because the way that clinicians try and figure this out are not available to me. So the kinds of tests that an ER doctor or a trauma surgeon would do to try and figure out that a patient is bleeding to death, I can't do those tests for technical reasons that I don't think are worth getting into. So instead, we forensic pathologists look for other markers that a patient is suffering from a significant blood loss. And that primarily consists of looking for pallor or paleness of various organs and tissues. The kidneys, the thyroid gland, the brain tend to be, in my experience, the organs that most readily demonstrate that pallor at the time of autopsy.
Did you observe those things during your autopsy of Christine?
I did observe generalized pallor during the internal examination in this case, yes.
And we talked earlier about the fact that you could generally date bruises in terms of newer versus older and healing. How did the bruises appear in this case?
The bruises in this case all appeared to be relatively fresh. I did not see anything. I don't have anything in my notes that indicates that I was thinking any of the bruises looked like they were in that healing stage. They all appeared to be fresh appearing injuries.
About how many total bruises did you document in Christine's body?
In the neighborhood of 100.
And that doesn't include the lacerations, abrasions, broken ribs, and internal bleeding?
No, I think I did that count based just solely on what I called contusions.
And in your opinion, with regards, again, to all of these injuries that we've just discussed, are those injuries consistent with an accident at all?
I don't believe so, no.
Why not?
The distribution of these injuries, the severity of these injuries, the temporal homogeneity, i.e. the fact that they all look to have occurred around the same time. This is not what I see when I examine patients that have suffered accidental injuries. As I think I said earlier, pattern recognition is part of what we do as forensic pathologists, and I examine far more patients that have died of accidental trauma than trauma that I ultimately deem to be inflicted. And this is simply not what I see in those patients. There's too many. The locations, there are numerous factors that lead me to that conclusion that this was not caused by an accident, in my best professional opinion.
Did you find any evidence during your autopsy that Christine suffered from any underlying medical conditions that could have contributed to her death?
No, I found no such evidence from the gross examination I performed, which means, i.e. the stuff I saw with my naked eye. I did do a microscopic examination of the major organs and didn't see any signs of significant underlying medical issues. And to the extent that I could obtain them, I did review medical records and saw no such mention of any major underlying medical issues that I believe would have played any role in why Miss Falzone died in this case.
What about pregnancy-related conditions?
I have, well, so I'll ask you to clarify. How exactly are you asking the question?
So did you find any evidence that Christine suffered from a medical complication caused by her pregnancy that could have killed her?
Oh, no. The answer to that question is no. Again, I did not observe anything at autopsy to even suggest the possibility that a pregnancy-related complication may account for why Miss Falzone died.
See any dog bites on Christine?
I did not see any injuries externally that I thought could be dog bites, no.
So based on everything we've discussed so far, do you have an opinion as to the cause and manner of Christine's death?
I do, and I had to sign her death certificate. So for every case, I have to offer my best opinion on a patient's cause and manner of death.
And what is that opinion here?
In this case, the exact wording I used for the cause of death was multiple blunt force injuries, and my manner of death opinion in this case is homicide.
Now, you don't know what item caused all of those blunt force injuries to Christine, do you?
No, I do not.
Does that in any way change your opinion as to the cause and manner of death?
No, it does not.
Why are you confident the manner of death was homicide and not accidental or undetermined?
As I answered before, I do not think there is even enough doubt for me to say undetermined with respect to manner, which would suggest a possibility that these injuries were, that the fatal injuries, to be clear, because a patient, that the fatal injuries in this case were accidental in nature. I was told that one of the things I should consider is, could she have fallen or tripped, that she might have been clumsy, might have fallen down some stairs. I've seen patients who have died from falling downstairs. This is not what I see. It is my best professional opinion that Ms. Falzone's injuries were due to inflicted trauma, and therefore, in my role as a forensic pathologist and medical examiner, it is my place to offer a manner of death opinion of homicide.
So now I want to move on and talk about the fetal autopsy.
Okay.
Is that process different than conducting an autopsy of an adult?
Somewhat, yes.
Have you received training on conducting fetal autopsies?
Training and experience, yes.
About how many of those have you done over your career?
Fetal autopsies, you mean?
Yes.
1 to 2 dozen at this point, probably. They're not nearly as common, but between my training and my work experience, it's probably closer to 2 dozen at this point.
And does a fetal autopsy also consist of both an external and internal examination?
Yes, and there's also some extra stuff that you haven't even asked about yet, but yes.
Does that include examining the placenta?
Yes, that's what I was referring to. If available, a fetal autopsy most definitely should include examination of the placenta.
In this case, was the baby male or female?
Female.
During your autopsy, did you observe any trauma to the baby itself?
No, I did not.
Is that unusual that we see contusions to the outside of Christine's abdomen, but then no trauma to the baby?
I don't think that this is a common enough occurrence for me to even offer an opinion of whether or not it's usual or unusual. It doesn't surprise me that there could be some degree of blunt trauma to the abdomen without me also seeing blunt trauma to the fetus or the placenta.
And during your autopsy of the fetus itself, the internal and external examination, did you discover any evidence that the baby had an underlying medical condition that would have contributed to her death?
No, I did not observe any gross or microscopic abnormalities to the baby or the fetus to suggest any medical issue having played a role in fetal demise.
And you mentioned that you also examined the placenta. Can you describe how you do that? What's significant to you?
Well, examining the placenta in a fetal demise case is very important because oftentimes the cause of fetal demise is actually found in the examination of the placenta. I don't think I need to get too into that here because that's more medical stuff. But it's just an important part of the examination. And if the placenta is available, which in this case, of course it was intrauterine, as was the fetus, I examined it. I have an appropriate gross description, and I also took appropriate microscopic sections for exam as well, and didn't see any pathology microscopically either.
So you didn't find anything medically significant about the placenta that could have led to the baby's death?
No, I did not.
Dr. Weinberg, what is maceration?
Maceration is a term that pathologists will use that essentially describes a type of sterile decomposition that occurs when there is fetal demise and then some period of time elapses before delivery of that fetus. So in some cases, there will be a fetal demise, and some period of time will pass, say, a day, 2 days, 3 days, before the products of conception leave the woman's body, whether by delivery through the birth canal or a surgical procedure. When that passage of time has occurred between fetal demise and the fetus leaving the womb, maceration will occur. It is a very sort of specific type of, and I'm going to make quotes here because postmortem is not the right term, but that's kind of what I mean, postmortem type of change. But it's not postmortem because you can't die if you're not alive.
Did you observe any evidence of maceration to Christine's baby in this case?
No, there was no indication of maceration to the fetus in this case, and therefore no indication of any significant passage of time between fetal demise and death of Miss Falzone.
Were you able to determine the gestational age of the fetus?
I was able to determine an approximate gestational age, which I ultimately am opining as a range of a few weeks.
And how do you come up with that range?
Sure. So I take lots of measurements is the simple answer. I take lots of measurements of the fetus externally, internally, and then there are tables, very, very detailed tables in pediatric pathology texts or journal articles or both. And I literally just try to match up, the weight of the liver fits approximately this many gestational weeks. The length of the foot fits here. And then I look at the overall pattern of where those measurements lie. I kind of erase the outliers in either direction. And I then offered my opinion of the approximate gestational age of the fetus in this case.
And what is your opinion as to the approximate gestational age here?
35 to 37 weeks.
So that would be 8 months-ish?
Approximately 8 months, yes, near term.
So the last thing I'm going to show you, Dr. Weinberg, is States Exhibit 32. Does this photograph accurately depict the state of Christine's baby and of the placenta at the time of autopsy?
After a little bit of cleaning up, yes.
Do you see any evidence of maceration to that baby?
No, none whatsoever.
Do you see anything about the placenta that is significant to you as part of your conclusion?
No, the placenta appeared as a normal third trimester placenta, both grossly and microscopically.
Was that baby viable?
Yes.
And based on all of your findings, what was the mechanism of the baby's death?
Maternal death.
Okay, so in other words, the baby died because her mother died.
That is my opinion, yes.
And did you offer an opinion as to the cause of death for the baby? Is that maternal death?
Again, you don't use that exact terminology because you can't die if you're not alive. The term is fetal demise, so I had to fill out a certificate of fetal demise in this case, not a death certificate, or for that part of the case, I should say. But yes, I did offer, I do have an opinion on the cause of fetal demise in this case, yes.
And what is that?
Maternal blunt force injuries.
Do you issue any findings with regards to manner of death when you fill out a certificate of fetal demise?
No, in New Hampshire, the certificate of fetal demise does not have any place on that document for a manner of fetal demise, no.
And despite the fact that you're sort of filling out different paperwork in this instance, is it your opinion that Christine's baby would not have died but for Christine's death?
Yes, that is my opinion.
One moment, Judge. That's all I have for you right now. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Could counsel approach the bench, please? Ladies and gentlemen, we will take our afternoon break at this time. Again, for about 10 or 15 minutes, so about 2:45, be starting to get ready to line up and come in. Please remember my usual instruction. Don't discuss anything about the case, nothing about any of the evidence that you've seen so far, nothing at all about the case. Don't listen to anything, read anything, or look anything up. And we'll see you in 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you.
I'll ask the jury.
Quite brief, and again, I didn't notice any. I didn't notice at all such a reaction. So we will proceed, and if the doctor could resume the stand, and we will bring the jurors in. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. Doctor, you may be seated. Thank you. And counsel for Mr. Kelly may inquire.
Dr. Weinberg, my name is Kate Canny. We've met before.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. So I want to start with kind of some basic stuff about your work. The mandate from or for the Office of the Medical Examiner comes from state statute. Is that right?
Correct.
And there are certain situations under law where an autopsy is required.
Not exactly. The way the statute is written, there are certain kinds of cases that are supposed to be reported to our office, and ultimately, we pathologists generally have discretion about what level of examination to perform. That's not 100% true, but it's generally true, and I think serves our purposes here today.
Okay, thank you. In those cases, though, your mandate, as you said before, is to certify the cause and manner of death.
Correct.
And the standard of certainty that you need to meet is what?
That is actually a tougher question than it might first appear. Are you referring to cause of death, manner of death, all the above?
Are they different?
This is something that forensic pathologists debate amongst ourselves. And as far as I know, after doing this for about 15 years, there is not a single definition or standard that everybody agrees to. Different terms or different phrases are offered, things like preponderance of evidence, reasonable medical certainty, etc. The phrasing I tend to use when asked this under oath is I say that the cause and manner of death opinions that I'm offering in a case are my best professional medical opinions.
And so we can't really quantify that. We can't place that in a 51% or a 75% or 80%, right?
I wouldn't think so, no ma'am.
It's certainly not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that right?
That is not the mental standard I apply to myself when offering opinions. No.
In this case, you followed the protocols set out by the National Association of Medical Examiners, is that correct?
Generally, the question, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but generally, I mean, we're a name accredited office. We generally follow the name autopsy standards, but it's not something I'm actively thinking about as I'm working through a case.
Okay. There's a standard autopsy procedure that you follow?
You mean like a standard, like how I physically perform an autopsy?
Yes, your protocol.
Kind of. I'm sorry, I'm just not following how you're asking the question. There is a standard way I perform most autopsies, yes.
And does that come from any body, like name, like anything else?
I mean, again, like I said, we are a name accredited office. We generally follow NAME's autopsy standards. I also rely on my training and experience in deciding how I'm going to perform an exam in an individual case.
Okay. I guess a standard or average adult autopsy involves removing organs, right?
Yes.
And examining them by sight, at least initially. That's the gross.
Yes, that's the gross portion of the examination. Yes, every autopsy generally would include a gross portion of the examination. Yes.
Does every autopsy include sampling tissue?
When you say sampling, I think you mean sampling for a microscopic examination?
Yes.
No. The answer to that question is no. In the state of New Hampshire, nationally, no.
Okay. And sometimes, though, in certain cases, you do choose to do that?
I did in this case, yes, do it.
Okay.
So-
So I guess my point is a standard autopsy is not appropriate in every case, right? You use your discretion, you use your training and experience to determine what needs to happen in this particular case.
The latter part of what you said is true. I guess I don't know exactly what you mean by a standard autopsy. In my mind, a standard autopsy is I'm doing the examination and ancillary testing that I think are appropriate for me to fulfill my statutory obligations, fulfill my professional obligations of determining that patient's cause and manner of death.
Okay. There do exist some more thorough protocols out there, right, in the field of forensic pathology?
I'm not sure exactly, again, how you're asking the question. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Sure. Are you familiar with the Minnesota protocol?
No.
You're not familiar with the Minnesota protocol?
The Minnesota protocol?
Yes.
That is not a phrasing I'm familiar with, no ma'am.
Okay. And you practiced for a long time in Alberta, Canada?
Yes.
And you don't know that the Minnesota protocol is widely used there?
I'm not familiar with the term the Minnesota protocol, no ma'am.
Are you familiar with a protocol for forensic pathology which includes a layered approach, layered dissection of the body?
I'm not, again, sure exactly how you're referring to it. I mean, there are times where I will perform layered dissections of particular parts of the body as I think is appropriate. Perhaps this is just about terminology. I don't think of these things as protocols. So, for example, in this case, I did perform a layered neck dissection.
A layered neck dissection?
Yes.
And to do what? To tell you what?
You're saying, why did I do it?
Yes.
To look for the presence or absence of injury inside the neck internally and to document the presence or absence thereof. I thought it was warranted based on case circumstances and the examinations up to that point in the autopsy, such that I slightly modified my quote unquote standard way of conducting an adult autopsy, and I did elect in this case to perform a layered neck dissection.
And did you elect to perform any other layered dissections in this case?
I don't believe I did, no.
I want to talk a little bit about cause versus mechanism of death and make sure that's clear.
Okay.
So you've offered the opinion that the cause of Ms. Falzone's death was multiple blunt force injuries, yes?
Correct.
So cause of death refers to either the disease or the injury that sort of initiates the fatal process. Is that a fair way to put it?
That's a good way to think of it, yes.
So for example, and I think you said this to the prosecutor, one cause of death could be a gunshot wound, right?
I don't remember if I used that specific example, but yes, gunshot wound is a very common cause of death phrasing that I use as a forensic pathologist.
Okay. I think you did use the example of drug overdose. That's another one.
Yes, that's another very common one.
Or a disease like cancer, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cause of death, though, is not the same as mechanism of death.
No, it's not. They are different things.
So in pathology, the mechanism of death means the physiologic process by which someone dies. Is that the way to put it?
Yes, that's a good way to think about it.
Meaning, like, what actually happened inside the body to make the person die?
What happened physiologically? What pathophysiologic derangement occurred that led to the patient's no longer being alive?
So examples of that include massive blood loss, like exsanguination is what you said. earlier.
Yes, that is one
Other-
mechanism.
Other examples would be loss of oxygen, asphyxiation,
Yes, asphyxia is a mechanism. Yes.
or heart failure, respiratory failure.
Yes, various organ failures or other mechanism or other common mechanisms of death. Yes.
In terms of manner of death that you talked about to the prosecutor, you listed 5 and you described it as a venue, right?
Yes.
So these are the ones you're choosing from. There's nothing else that you can kind of elect out of that menu.
Not permanently, no. I can use pending as a placeholder while a case is actively being worked up, but the 5 I talked about before are the final options amongst which I have to choose.
And that choice is something you make after you kind of issue your final or make your final conclusion about the cause of death. Is that fair to say?
Sometimes. There are times where I can opine on cause of death very quickly, but I penned the manner for further investigation. So it's case dependent. Much of the time, the cause and manner of death opinion are offered around the same point in a case, but not always.
I guess, and maybe I didn't ask this clearly, I guess my point is you wouldn't give an opinion on a manner of death before figuring out the cause of death. Is that fair?
Generally not, although I could think of I could think of exceptions to that rule, but generally that's true.
Right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the accuracy, obviously, of your opinion on manner of death depends on the accuracy of your findings related to cause of death, right?
I suppose that's one way to think of it. I mean, I don't even know if accuracy is the right term to use. It's an opinion.
Because, right, that's what I'm getting at. It's an opinion, it's a guess, it's not scientifically verifiable, is it?
I don't know if I would agree with all that phrasing. It is the best opinion of the individual certifying it. And the reason I'm phrasing it this way is because there are certain situations where exactly what happened is clear. And if you presented that case to 100 competent practicing forensic pathologists scattered across this country, you'd get some sort of split, whether it's 60-40, 70-30, whatever. But there are cases where even competent professionals know exactly what happened and just interpret that differently. So the manner of death at the end of the day is the best opinion of the individual certifying the death.
Okay. And it's not scientifically verifiable. Is that fair?
Not in the sense of a laboratory test. No, ma'am.
Moving on to blunt force trauma.
Okay.
So you gave a definition earlier in the direct exam, and you gave some examples, like being struck with an object or being thrown against an immobile object. Was that what the examples you gave?
I don't remember exactly what I said. Those certainly are examples. Blows are another example of how somebody can sustain blunt force trauma.
Is blunt force trauma necessarily inflicted on the person by another person? Or can it be a situation where someone falls and sustains blunt force trauma or sustains blunt force trauma in a car accident or something like that?
Oh, sure. Yes. The majority of cases where I sign a cause of death as blunt force trauma are accidental, not homicidal in nature. So yes, that's certainly possible.
Thank you for clarifying. I just want to make sure it's clear. So blunt force trauma, that opinion does not tell you anything about causation, just the nature of that label.
That's a fair statement. It's a description, a categorization of the nature of the injury. Forensic pathologists, we classify injuries. That's what we do. That's how we think. So blunt force injuries, penetrating injuries from a knife or a gunshot wound, asphyxial type of injuries like strangulation. That's how we think. We categorize these injuries based on how they may have occurred.
So in this case, and I want to just make sure it's clear. Blunt force trauma is a cause of death. It's not a mechanism of death, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And blunt force trauma is an inference and not a scientific fact. Is that fair to say?
No, I respectfully disagree with that. I feel very confident in this case that the appropriate classification of Ms. Falzone's injuries are as blunt force trauma.
Well, I'm not saying necessarily. I guess my question is, an inference means it's something that you are determining from what you see. You're not able to test it, right?
Oh, I see how you're saying it. I suppose in that sense that it's true. It is. I don't know if inference is the word I would use. Interpretation. It is. Yes, it is my interpretation of the findings of the injuries and that they are due to blunt force trauma.
And at the risk of being completely obvious, there's no specific test that can confirm blunt force trauma.
Not, again, it's not like a laboratory test where I can, submit something to a laboratory and it will give me a number and magically I know it's blunt force trauma. No, that's not, I guess, how this works.
So to conclude that someone has actually died of blunt force trauma, not just that they exhibit signs of it, but that they've died of it, you have to determine the mechanism of death, right?
Generally, but not necessarily. Much of the time I do, but I don't know. I guess I don't think of it quite that way.
Well, if you can't determine the mechanism of death, another thing you could do is rule out other possibilities, right?
Well, certainly that is part of any cause of death determination. So a huge part of my job as a forensic pathologist is distinguishing when somebody dies with a particular finding at autopsy versus from a particular finding at autopsy. So that I'll certainly agree with.
You said to the prosecutor earlier that you believe that Ms. Falzone's likely mechanism of death is blood loss.
I think that is the most likely mechanism of her death in this case, yes.
I want to emphasize that word you're using, likely, because that's not a certain finding that you can make, right?
We talked about this in the deposition, right? I, as a forensic pathologist of my generation, have been trained very hard not to use words like certain, always, definitely, never, etc. So there is relatively little as a forensic pathologist that I will say I am certain of. Coming back to the wording I've used before, it is my best professional opinion that the mechanism of Ms. Falzone's death relates to blood loss.
Understood. So I want to talk a little about blood loss.
Okay.
You said the average adult, well, I don't know if you said this actually, the average adult has around 5 liters of blood in the body.
That's the generally quoted figure for an average-sized adult man. More precise calculations can be done based on certain measurements and size characteristics of the individual. But 5 liters is kind of the number that's often thrown around if you're just looking for a quote-unquote average.
Okay. And a pregnant woman has more blood in her body than a non-pregnant woman?
Yes.
Okay. In general, blood loss is fatal at around 40% of a person's total blood volume.
That is often what is quoted, that an acute blood loss of 40% in a healthy individual will be, or has the potential to be fatal, I should say. Yes.
So I'm gonna hopefully do the math right, but if a person has 5 liters of blood, that's about 2 liters of blood loss.
Oh, yes, right. 2 liters is 40% of 5. Yes.
And you had estimated, understanding that it's an estimate, Ms. Falzone's likely blood volume at the time of her death, being pregnant, was around 6 liters?
That's the calculation that I was able to find a calculator that incorporates pregnancy status and gestational age, size of the decedent, and you put the appropriate numbers in, and I got 5.9 liters. Yes.
And that's consistent with what you would expect?
You mean of an increase in blood volume compared to her baseline?
I mean, like the answer you got from the calculator that you used is not something that you say, oh, that doesn't seem right. It's consistent with what you might expect.
I mean, it seems plausible. It's not a calculation I do particularly commonly. So an anesthesiologist or an obstetrician would be more familiar with these kinds of numbers, but it seems reasonable.
Okay. And you recorded 500 milliliters of free blood, you said, in Ms. Falzone's abdomen?
I did. In the peritoneal cavity is the medical term, but yes, within free fluid within the belly. Free bloody fluid in the belly.
Okay. And just to put it, make sure we can all kind of visualize, 500 milliliters is half a liter.
Correct.
And in cups, 2 cups, does that sound right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's
Wait.
2.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
That would be right, so about 2 cups. And that's less than 10% of Ms. Falzone's total blood volume?
Of free blood in the belly? Yes.
Yes. Are you aware if a pregnant woman typically loses that much blood in a vaginal delivery?
I'm not an obstetrician. I don't have the expertise to answer that question.
500 milliliters of blood, though, would not be a fatal amount of blood loss in a healthy adult, would it?
In and of itself, I would generally not expect that. No, I would agree with that.
When you talk about the significant blood loss that you believe occurred in this case, you're not able to quantify anything other than that 2 cups or the 500 milliliters. Is that right?
That's correct, because all the other blood loss was into soft tissues, and there's no reliable way to measure. And I guess I should say, I also have no way of knowing about any external blood loss. Even if you look at scene photographs, it's very well known in my field that you don't look at a photograph and try and estimate the volume of blood in a photograph.
Because you wouldn't be able to do that reliably. Right?
Correct. It's not possible.
Could be a liter, could be a milliliter, you have no idea.
You cannot accurately estimate blood volume from a photograph as far as I'm aware.
Okay, and now the additional blood loss in the tissues under the skin, you could remove 1 layer at a time to actually try to get a better sense of the amount of blood loss, can't you?
No, I don't think so. It doesn't work that way. Even if I reflected the skin, the hemorrhage would be present within the soft tissue. That wouldn't put me in any better position to estimate its volume. No.
And you can't look at the soft tissue under a microscope and make any other estimations?
For estimating volume, no, a microscopic exam wouldn't add anything to that. It might serve other purposes, but not for a volume estimation, no.
So you can't make any quantification of the blood loss that Ms. Falzone suffered?
Her total blood loss? No, I cannot.
And it would have had to be about 4 times as much as you actually measured to be a level that was fatal.
Again, I don't know if that's, so, right, we're making certain assumptions. We're making the assumption that she did have a total volume around 6 liters. And there is actually even a line in my autopsy report where I try and address this kind of concern. To my knowledge, this was a pregnancy that did not involve any prenatal care. I don't know, I don't have every detail about Ms. Falzone's baseline nutritional status. So there's a line, because I think this is a fair question. So I don't think it's unreasonable to address it in front of the court, but I don't know if she was somewhat anemic before all of these injuries occurred, because of the pregnancy and the additional demands on her body, because of potential nutritional deficits due to, I want to be respectful, the difficult circumstances in which Ms. Falzone was living. So I don't know if she went into this incident in a pristine state of cardiovascular health with a full blood volume of blood with an appropriate hemoglobin. I don't know. There's no way for me to know that.
There's a lot of things about potential bleeding disorders that you don't know.
Well, I'm not talking about any sort of bleeding disorder, but I don't have any indication that Ms. Falzone had any sort of coagulopathy or bleeding disorder. No, but that's a different thing than what we've been talking about.
Right, we'll get back to that.
Okay?
So there's no obvious fatal injury in this case that you could pinpoint, right?
I mean, if you're saying, is there a single discrete injury, like a transection of the aorta or something, or, you know, in that sense, no, that I would agree with.
Well, your opinion is based on the totality of her injuries.
It's the totality of injuries, and I think, and we haven't really talked about this yet, either on direct or cross, so I'll take this opportunity to do so now. It's not just the totality of injuries, it's the totality of findings. It's also the fact that I have no other more likely explanation for why Ms. Falzone died. There is.
Okay, so that's actually what I'm about to get at. So
Okay.
Sometimes you have to use process of elimination.
To some extent, there are certain diagnoses that forensic pathologists render that are somewhat diagnoses of exclusion. Some, yes.
And you talked about with the state, you got toxicology
I did?
results and ruled out any issue there.
Yes, I'm quite confident Ms. Falzone did not die of an overdose.
And you also attempted to rule out a brain injury or a central nervous system disease.
Well, I mean, I got a neuropathology consult to document the neuropathology findings as for the presence or absence of direct blunt force trauma to the brain. That was the purpose of the neuropathology exam.
Let me ask you about that. You issued your autopsy report in April of 2024. Does that sound right?
Sounds right. I can
You can check.
look at the date, but that sounds about right. Yes. Yes, April 12th.
Okay. And that's about 4 months after you did the physical examination, right?
Correct.
So just to make sure we all understand, you didn't issue your conclusion on December 18th when you examined Ms. Falzone.
What conclusion?
Your opinion, I'm sorry.
I'm saying, which opinion are
On
you at?
cause of death?
Actually, I don't honestly remember if I signed the death certificate on the day of autopsy or not. I don't know if I have that document physically in here to answer that question. I honestly don't remember.
That's fine. But you did obtain a neuropathology consult, right?
Yes,
And that came back to you in April of 2024. Does that sound right?
probably, yes.
And you said that was why? To determine if what?
It wasn't so much to determine, it was to document the detailed findings of her brain, to document with as much thoroughness as possible due to essentially me expecting this kind of thing to happen, the presence or absence of direct injuries to the brain tissue. That was the purpose of the neuropathology consult. Not for me to determine cause and manner of death, at least not in isolation.
Okay. There was no suggestion, and correct me if I'm wrong, from your own exam of a lethal brain injury, was there?
Correct.
And you don't preserve the brain of every person you autopsy, do you?
No, we do not.
And you don't send out for a neuro consult in every case?
No, we do not.
But you did it in this one.
I did.
You didn't know
Again, I don't remember precisely when I finalized my diagnostic opinion on cause of death. I don't want to mistestify. I don't remember when I formally signed the death certificate in this case.
You did issue your autopsy report, though, on, I think it's April, do you have the date there? It's
April 12th.
April 12th.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was issued after you received the neuropathology results back.
Yes.
And those results said there's no findings, right?
There's no lethal brain trauma is what it said, yes.
And that's when you issue your report with your cause and manner of death, as far as you know?
I really don't remember. I might have signed the death certificate day of autopsy. If I knew this was going to be a question, I would have looked, but I honestly don't remember. This is the kind of case where I know I could have gone either way, and so I don't want to misspeak to the court.
I want to switch topics a little bit to the rib fractures.
Okay?
You said that they were acute. Is that right?
Well, the ones that I talked about as being acute injuries, there were also old rib fractures, so.
Okay, so, yes, I'm sorry. So I'm talking about the ones, yes, that you were able to see that appeared to be fresh.
Yes,
Okay, and you could see those with your naked eyes, right?
yes,
So no imaging, anything like that?
no.
Now, Dr. Weinberg, it is incredibly common for rib fractures to occur during CPR,
Yes, I would agree with that.
right? Specifically chest compressions, right?
Yes, the chest compression's part of CPR.
There's even a saying about it, isn't there? Like, if you're not breaking a rib, you're not doing
Oh,
anything.
yeah, I've heard that bantied about.
Rib fractures, would you agree, might be more likely if you have someone who is unprofessionally applying chest compressions?
I honestly don't know. I don't know if that's been formally studied. It wouldn't surprise me.
Well, if someone's doing it too fast or too aggressively, wouldn't you expect a rib fracture to be more likely than someone who's doing it professionally?
It seems like a reasonable supposition, but I don't have any specific evidence to support or refute that.
Were you aware in this case that Mr. Kelly was performing chest compressions for about 15 minutes before EMTs arrived?
I didn't know the length of time, but I knew it had occurred.
You knew
Yes.
he was doing it.
Yes.
Were you aware that he had to be corrected because he was doing them too quickly?
No, I was not aware of that.
Rib fractures might also be more likely for a patient whose bones are more fragile, right?
Yes, I think you're talking about osteoporosis or osteopenia.
Pregnancy can decrease bone density, can it?
I don't know off the top of my head.
You don't know.
Off the top of my head, I'd have to look it up.
You have no idea if Ms. Falzone was more susceptible to fractures from CPR because of a lower bone density, do you?
No. There is a formal test that can be done in living patients to assess bone density. It's called a DEXA scan. I'm not aware of it ever being used in a postmortem context. It certainly wasn't done in this case. So,
And I'm not saying it should have been, but you don't know what her bone density was.
no, I do not.
And were you aware, I think you were, you talked about it with the prosecutor, that a Lucas device was used in this case?
Yes,
And a Lucas is a device that gives mechanical chest compressions,
yes,
and that delivers consistent and forceful compressions, right? That's what it's for.
yes. It's to provide the chest compressions. They're very tiring to do. Human beings tire out. The Lucas does not.
And are you aware that Ms. Falzone was being treated and given chest compressions by CPR, by EMTs, I'm sorry, for about 20 minutes?
I mean, again, I didn't have the exact number, but I knew she received resuscitative chest compressions in various forms. Yes,
And a Lucas can also cause rib fractures, right?
I've definitely seen that. Yes. But not laterally.
Well, never?
I've never seen lateral rib fractures from, I shouldn't say never. I don't recall having seen lateral rib fractures or posterior rib fractures from CPR. Anterior, yes, and that's why it's written this way in the report. I will freely admit that my level of certainty on the anterior rib fractures is lower than my level of certainty on the lateral rib fractures, but it is still my interpretation, because there is an overlying injury, that those rib fractures are due to injury and not chest compressions. But my job here is to be honest and give the court the best information that I can, and the level of certainty in that opinion is lower than the level of certainty for the lateral rib fractures. That's what I want to convey.
So just to be clear though, you cannot say that it is impossible for chest compressions to cause lateral rib fractures. You just haven't seen it.
We talked about this kind of language before. I am not familiar with chest compressions causing the kinds of lateral rib fractures that were present in this case. The anterior ones, it's possible. It's not what I think, but it's possible. The lateral strikes me as extremely unlikely.
Unlikely for a person with normal bone density at least?
Unlikely, period.
Okay,
It's just not where the force is applied.
but again, you can't say for sure that it can't happen.
I think I've given my answer.
Now, you talked about a patterned injury on direct examination, and you said it's consistent with a blow with an object or someone being thrown against a counter or a table. Do you recall that?
I do. I hope I would have said elongated object, because that's okay, because that's the kind of thing I would associate with that pattern of injury, if it is in fact a patterned injury.
So you can say the type of object that might have contacted her, right? But it's also consistent with falling on a counter, falling on the side of the table.
That's true, yes.
The pattern doesn't tell you how it was inflicted, right?
That is true.
Just want to ask a couple of questions about the fetal autopsy.
Okay.
So you've been candid. You're not a pediatric pathologist, right?
I am not.
That's a separate specialty,
It is a separate subspecialty of anatomic pathology, yes.
and that requires a separate fellowship.
It does, yes, which I did not complete.
And you've had some training and experience in conducting fetal autopsies, though.
Yes,
And you've done a number of them as part of your own practice.
yes, it's a standard part of forensic pathology practice in North America.
They still make up a remarkably small percentage, though, of your cases. Is that fair?
Yes, it's a relatively small percentage.
Now, if you had chosen to, you would have had the ability to consult with a pediatric pathologist.
That is an option to me when I think it is necessary, yes.
Easy option, that's easy as sending an email, I think you told us in the deposition.
An email, phone call, yes, there are contacts we have at Dartmouth that can assist us. And I have availed myself of pediatric pathology expertise when I thought I needed it to do my job.
And you didn't think you needed it in this case?
To determine the cause of fetal demise in this case, no, I did not, and I still don't.
And on the topic of that opinion, your opinion is based on the lack of signs of maceration. You talked about that.
Which opinion are you referring to,
I'm
ma'am?
sorry, that the cause of fetal demise is maternal death,
That is my opinion, yes.
and that is based on the absence of maceration?
No. That's the absence of maceration is why I'm comfortable that there was not any significant difference in the time of maternal death versus time of fetal demise, as in they appear to have occurred at essentially the same time. That is the opinion that comes from the absence of maceration. The opinion on the cause of fetal demise is based on the totality of my fetal examination. There's no other reason that I observed for this fetus to have died. There were no gross abnormalities, there were no microscopic abnormalities, there were no placental abnormalities. This appeared to be a healthy, near-term female fetus, and I found no reason for her to have died other than the death of her mother.
Okay, and I think forgive my language, I think that is what I was asking. The absence of maceration, though, does tell you that, in your opinion, or it does allow you to make the opinion that the fetus did not die prior to Ms. Falzone's death?
Yes, that's correct. I don't think a significant amount of time elapsed between fetal demise and Ms. Falzone's death.
Okay. And that, however, the absence of those features still scientifically leaves about a day window, right?
I don't think it would be that long. I've had cases where the intrauterine retention period is about a day, and you do start to see, I don't know off the top of my head exactly how many hours before you start to see maceration, but I've had those cases, and if we're talking about a full day, I would expect to see some changes in the fetus that were not present in this case.
There is at least a window, right?
There's presumably some small window of perhaps a few hours where there aren't any outward signs, but I don't know precisely what that number is off the top of my head.
Ms. Falzone was in her third trimester of pregnancy,
Yes,
and fair to say pregnancy is a complex physiologic process.
yes,
And again, physiology means the way the body functions.
yes. Physiology refers to functioning of organs, the body, etc.
Pregnancy causes significant changes to a woman's body,
There are physiologic changes associated with pregnancy, yes.
and those changes are to essentially all of her organ systems.
I don't want to go too far down this road. I'm not an obstetrician, right? We talked about this at the deposition. There are various changes to a woman's physiology during the course of pregnancy. I don't know how much more specific I can answer.
There are changes to her organ systems, is that fair? You can answer that?
Some, yes, there certainly are some changes, yes.
Changes in hormone levels,
Yes, you would expect that.
changes in blood chemistry?
I don't know what do you mean by blood chemistry, like?
Okay. Well, anemia, can we talk about that?
What about it?
The likelihood of a pregnant woman being anemic.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Sure. A pregnant woman is going to have more blood
Yes,
than a non-pregnant woman.
yes.
Sometimes that means that there's a lower proportion of iron in her blood.
Well, if that additional iron necessary to make more red blood cells doesn't come in through the diet or a prenatal vitamin, then yes, then the woman would have a risk for iron deficiency anemia, yes.
Anemia is common in pregnancy, is that fair to say?
Again, I'm not an obstetrician. It's probably not fair for me to be talking about common pregnancy conditions. It would not surprise me if that's true, but I don't have the training and experience to answer that question.
So you're not an obstetrician.
I do not deliver babies for a living, no.
An obstetrician is a medical doctor who specializes in both pregnancy and childbirth, right?
I mean, generally in North America, it's a combined residency of gynecology and obstetrics. And yes, it is a completely different specialty than is pathology.
An obstetrician has formal training in the physiology of pregnancy, yes?
I would assume so, but I didn't do an OBGYN residency, so I don't know.
You don't have that training or education, fair to say?
I mean, I took OBGYN as a medical student. It's a core rotation, so I have some training in obstetrics and gynecology,
Okay.
but I'm not an obstetrician or a gynecologist.
And neither are the other two pathologists that make up your office. They are not obstetricians either, as far as-
No, by definition, a pathologist wouldn't, I mean, unless you happen to do two totally separate residencies and switch career tracks. No, pathologists are pathologists. Obstetricians are OBGYNs. They're different, like pediatrics and surgery.
You've performed, you said around 2,500 autopsies in your career.
Somewhere in that neighborhood, I would think, yes.
Definitely over 2,000.
Yes, by this point, it has to be well over 2,000.
How many of those have been on pregnant women?
I don't have an exact number. Women that were definitively pregnant at the time of autopsies, probably in the 5 to 10 range.
Between 5 and 10.
Somewhere in that range. It's not a super common occurrence, fortunately.
And of those, how many were third trimester pregnancies? Do you know?
Maybe 1 or 2.
1 or 2. Of those, do you know how many, or in how many of those CPR was done?
I don't remember.
Do you know if you've ever done an autopsy on a pregnant woman where CPR was done?
I don't have a way of remembering that level of detail.
And were any of those cases that you've done on pregnant women prior to Ms. Falzone done in a case of a suspected homicide?
Not to my recollection, no.
This is the first, as far as you can recall.
I cannot recall a previous case involving a pregnant woman whose death was suspicious and or ultimately deemed a homicide.
We can agree that even as a seasoned pathologist, conducting an autopsy on a visibly injured pregnant woman is emotionally distressing.
I'm not sure what you're asking, was I don't know.
I guess I'm asking.
Was it emotionally distressing?
Yes.
I'm a professional and I try to maintain decorum in the autopsy suite when performing an autopsy. I don't know. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Okay. Ms. Falzone's appearance, though, was not something that you've typically seen.
You mean a near-term pregnant woman in the autopsy suite? No, it's not common.
This is going to be relatively obvious, but I need to ask. There's a, I guess, subspecialty or specialty called a placental pathologist.
It's not a subspecialty in the same sense as forensic or pediatric pathology. Like, it's not a boarded subspecialty by the American Board of Pathology. There are surgical pathologists whose practices involve a lot of expertise and a lot of examinations of placentas. Yes, that exists.
And those pathologists can work in hospitals? Right?
They generally do, yes.
And they would examine hundreds to thousands of placentas a year?
Depending on the size of the institution, yes. I mean, I'm thinking back to Ohio State at this point, and yes, the pathologists that covered that service, I don't remember the exact number, but it was probably a few hundred, it was probably many hundred per year placentas that were examined, yes.
And how many placentas do you examine per year on average?
It's definitely 5 or less, yes.
Placental pathologists that work in hospitals will typically examine placentas even in cases of live childbirth, right?
Yes.
So basically, if anything's wrong with the baby at birth, the placenta goes to the pathologist for an examination?
My understanding is different hospitals will have different protocols. Some hospitals, I think, send every placenta. Some hospitals leave it to the discretion of the obstetrician. Right, this isn't my area of practice, so I'm not sure, but there's variable practices out there in the community.
Does the Office of the Medical Examiner have the ability to consult with outside experts when necessary?
Yes.
And for example, you obviously consulted with the neuropathologist in this case.
I did.
If, for example, you wanted to consult with an expert in obstetrics, you could have done that?
Yes.
You have the ability and resources in your office to seek out that kind of consultation?
Yes.
Same with a placental pathologist. If you chose to do that, you could find one to consult with?
If I thought it was necessary, yes, that was an option available to me.
And you did not do that in this case, right?
Correct.
Either an obstetrician or a placental pathologist.
That is correct.
So, understanding you're not an obstetrician, you can stop me if I ask something that you don't know, but you are a medical doctor,
Yes.
and you, as you said, you've had some training and education in pregnancy
I mean, just again, as a medical student.
in medical school. And we talked about pregnancy is a complex state. Is that fair?
Seems to be a reasonable statement, yes.
You ever heard pregnancy referred to as a disease?
I haven't, no.
You haven't. And it's not a derogatory thing. It just would mean that pregnancy is a potentially life-threatening state. Is that fair?
Sure.
Well, I don't.
I mean,
Is it?
I'm not, you're asking me questions about other medical specialties.
Another medical specialty that you don't even know if it's a life-threatening state?
I don't really agree with the characterization. I mean, there are significant medical issues that can arise in pregnancy that are life-threatening. I wouldn't say that every routine pregnancy is a life-threatening state. I don't want to argue semantics. That doesn't seem
It
appropriate.
can be potentially a life-threatening state. Is that a better way to say it?
Yes,
And you're aware that prenatal care is recommended for all pregnant mothers.
yes,
And because we now as a society provide medical care for childbirth, mortality rates have dropped.
yes.
Would you agree that not having prenatal care could be potentially life-threatening in pregnancy?
In some cases, I suppose that's possible. If a significant issue arose and then wasn't attended to, sure, it could be, it's potentially life-threatening to either the fetus, the mother, or both.
And in general, there are certain things that can make a woman's pregnancy high risk.
Yes, there are criteria that make a pregnancy categorized as high risk. That's a term I've heard, yes.
One example, not one involved in this case, but one example could be the age of the mother, right?
Yes, advanced maternal age is considered such a risk factor.
Certainly having no prenatal care would make a pregnancy high risk.
Again, the exact criteria are probably better answered by an obstetrician. That would make sense to me, that lack of prenatal care would not be ideal, but alternatively, for most of human history, modern medicine did not exist, and yet we're all still here. So that's not to say that pregnancy didn't carry risks and that modern medicine doesn't have value. It's just right. It's not an extreme. It's not an extreme in either direction. I'm saying, pardon?
Sorry, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
There are certain conditions associated with pregnancy that are potentially life-threatening that 500 years ago might have led to death of the fetus, the mother, or both, and that today are treatable. But at the same time, 500 years ago, there were also obviously plenty of pregnancies that were successful and didn't result in maternal or fetal death. So that's all I'm trying to say. I don't think we should be characterizing it at either any of this at either extreme.
Well, there were also far higher mortality rates in childbirth 500 years ago before modern medicine.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yes.
That's all I'm trying to get at.
Okay. Yes, that is true.
You would agree, or would you agree that substance use, either current or former, would be a risk factor?
You mean for a high-risk pregnancy? I believe that is considered such a factor. Yes.
What about unsanitary living conditions?
I'm not sure. I mean, there's plenty of things that may not obviously be healthy living conditions that don't meet the formal criteria from ACOG, which is the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, their definitions or common obstetric definitions of high-risk pregnancy.
You talked about a lack of proper nutrition before with the prosecutor. That's also one of them?
I mean, again, it seems like it could be, but I don't know the specific criteria.
You had a chance to review a very small amount of medical records from Ms. Falzone in this case.
What I could obtain, yes.
Right. And were you aware that Ms. Falzone had been diagnosed with opioid use disorder in the past?
Yes, I was aware.
And that was from the medical records that you reviewed?
Yes.
To your knowledge, Ms. Falzone was receiving no prenatal medical care. her death?
I found no indication that she was receiving prenatal care prior to her death.
So I think you said that on direct with the prosecutor that there was no mention of major medical issues in the records that you reviewed. Do you recall saying that?
Yes,
And that was in response to a question about pregnancy-related medical issues.
I don't recall exactly, but could be.
To be clear, though, the small portion, or the small number of pages of medical records you had were from prior to Ms. Felsen's pregnancy, right?
Yes, I think the latest that I was able to find were, I think, August of 2022. 22, yes. Well over a year before she died. There was a negative pregnancy test documented at that time, and just mathematically, it was clearly before she would have been pregnant. And I did not find any records from 2023.
So there was no mention of major pregnancy-related medical issues in her medical records, but there were no medical records from the time that she was pregnant.
Well, either pregnancy-related medical issues or other medical issues. The things I found related largely to substance use, to mental health issues. There might have been some other stuff on there, but there was, I hope what I was trying to say is I did not see any major underlying medical issues that I would expect to lead to be potentially fatal in a woman in her early to mid 30s.
But that doesn't mean they weren't there, right? They're just, you don't have any information either way.
I mean, I'm not sure how to answer that. I don't know what I don't know if other records are out there. You know, you ask for what you know exists.
Counsel, I need to respectfully ask you just to be mindful of the time. If you'd like to approach the bench to discuss where we are, I'm happy to do that. But I just want to make sure that that we know where we are and that we're staying on track.
I think that's kind of the definition, right? The high-risk pregnancy means that there's a higher risk of negative outcomes.
There's plenty of medical complications that can arise. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. You're aware, we talked about it at the deposition, you're aware that preeclampsia and eclampsia are medical complications of pregnancy, right?
I am aware of their existence as obstetric complications, yes.
You're aware of their existence as obstetric complications. You're aware that they are potentially life-threatening complications, right?
Yes.
And these are conditions that would typically be monitored with prenatal care by checking the woman's blood pressure, right?
That would be part of it, yes.
And these conditions can cause a woman to bruise easily as her organs fail her, right?
It's, I suppose, theoretically possible as part of the syndrome, yes.
And you cannot say whether Ms. Falzone suffered from preeclampsia or eclampsia.
True, but I also think it's important to state I don't have any information that I received as part of this case to suggest it either.
Well, you could have diagnosed it through a more thorough placenta exam, couldn't you?
No, I'm not aware of eclampsia or preeclampsia being diagnosed by anatomic exam of the placenta. It's a clinical syndrome. It's based on the patient's symptoms. I'm not aware of it being diagnosed through placental
You're
examination.
not aware of any way to diagnose it after death?
Eclampsia or preeclampsia? I mean, it can be rendered as a diagnosis in the right circumstance, but not in the way you're suggesting through an through an anatomic examination of the placenta. I'm not aware of that, no.
Okay. And you didn't consult with a placental pathologist, right?
No, I did not.
Or an obstetrician?
No, I did not.
You didn't consider this as a possibility?
No, that's not true. I considered, I don't know if I remember, I don't remember my exact thoughts. I certainly considered alternative medical explanations for why Miss Falzone could have died, but I don't have any evidence to suggest that. As a forensic pathologist, I make diagnoses based on the evidence that I have, not on supposition.
But your job is also to rule out possible explanations.
My job is to rule out, to the extent possible, alternative diagnoses. I mean, there are, if you go down that road, then, anybody who hasn't essentially died of a gunshot wound to the head, you'd have to rule the manner and cause undetermined. That's not how modern forensic pathology is practiced. I mean, for example, I don't order detailed genetic screening on an overdose death.
Let me ask you this. So you know, or you have some indications that Ms. Falzone has received no prenatal care. You have no information to suggest that she has received prenatal care, right?
True.
And you have information to suggest this might be a high-risk pregnancy.
I suppose I wasn't, that's not really what I was thinking about necessarily, but
You cannot rule out the presence of preeclampsia or eclampsia, correct?
those are clinical diagnoses based on symptoms that would be diagnosed in life. I don't believe I have the ability to rule it out, but it's also, I think, important to note, I don't have any indications from the history that was provided. Like there were no, for example, symptoms that were conveyed as part of her history over the months prior to her death that raised that as a major diagnostic consideration either.
Well, there was no information about symptoms in the months prior to her death that was provided.
No, there was no medical information. Just because somebody doesn't go to the doctor doesn't mean that they don't necessarily, report symptoms. I have cases where that occurs all the time.
You have no indication either way if Ms. Falzone had those symptoms.
I don't have information suggesting she had them, and I don't know. You're asking me to prove a negative.
No, I'm asking you, you do not have information that she did not have those symptoms, correct? You don't have any records, you don't have any report of any time period in the months prior to her death. Do you?
Not in a formal medical setting, no.
Okay. And let me be clear, the medical records that you do have, those are from a single visit, right?
No, they're from multiple visits to a single clinician.
Well, I think they're from one visit and then there's kind of like an initial summary on there, right?
No, I think there were multiple visits
How many
in,
visits?
I think at least 3 that I saw. I was looking at the dates of visit and there were, I think I saw at least 3 discrete dates.
3 total from 2022.
I think they were all, I don't remember now off the top of my head.
That's all you have, though. is that-
I looked and I do know that 2022 was the latest I found.
Okay. So, again, I want to be really clear. You cannot say that Ms. Falzone did not suffer from preeclampsia
In the sense you're asking the question, no, but I also don't have any indication that she was.
That's fine.
Okay.
Now, there is another major bleeding complication in pregnancy that I want to ask you about called hemolytic uremic syndrome, which causes internal bleeding and bruising. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of it as a diagnostic entity. It's probably not something I'm going to be able to speak at in detail without some preparation.
You're aware that it exists?
Yes,
You're aware it can be fatal?
I honestly don't recall off the top of my head.
You're aware that it can cause bleeding and bruising?
I mean, if it's a hemolytic syndrome, then I would expect that, yes.
And you did not rule that out. Is that accurate?
Specifically, no, I did not.
The last thing I want to talk to you about is HELP syndrome, which stands for hemolysis, elevated liver enzymes, liver damage, and loss of platelets. Have you heard of that?
Yes, that's part of the preeclampsia spectrum of disease, so we've kind of already talked about it.
And that's just to say what that is. It's a potentially fatal condition as well.
I mean, again, it's part of the eclampsia, preeclampsia, HELP syndrome. They're a spectrum of disease. So yes,
That condition specifically involves the loss of platelets.
it does involve low platelets or thrombocytopenia as part of the syndrome, yes.
And platelets, loss of platelets or low platelets can cause someone to bruise more easily, right?
Yes, thrombocytopenia could be associated with easier bruising.
And you cannot rule out HELP syndrome in this case.
I mean, it's the same thing we just kind of talked about. Specifically and definitively, no, I don't have any indication that Ms. Falzone had HELP syndrome or any diseases on the eclampsia, preeclampsia spectrum.
But again, you can't rule it out.
Also true.
So I want to take a quick second and explain bruising and bleeding disorders. The state did a little bit of this, but a bruise is essentially blood where it shouldn't be.
Yes,
Okay. So blood vessels break and the blood escapes those blood vessels.
seeps out of the vascular system into the surrounding soft tissue and causes what we see as a bruise, yes.
And so that's why a person with a bleeding disorder could bruise more easily. That's the connection between the two, right?
Yes, that would be the connection. Patients whose blood clotting doesn't work quite as well could bleed more easily and therefore bruise more easily, yes.
For example, if I like bump softly into this table, I might not have a bruise, but someone with a bleeding disorder might get a bruise from that kind of soft bump.
That's the general idea behind why patients with coagulopathies can bruise more easily, yes.
So I want to talk about the big bruise on Ms. Falzone's chest.
Okay.
Chest compressions are traumatic to the body, right?
Yes,
Again, we talked about they can break ribs.
yes, they can.
They can certainly cause massive bruising, right?
They can cause bruising, generally not of the breadth that I saw in this case.
Okay. And again, you have not, to your recollection, done an exam on a pregnant woman who's had CPR?
I mean, other than Ms. Falzone, it's too specific a question. I don't have a way of remembering.
So you don't know if someone who is pregnant or someone who has a bleeding disorder would, anything would appear differently from CPR?
I mean, I've certainly I've examined older individuals with known bleeding issues. Oftentimes it's anticoagulant therapy. And so I have seen those patients that have received chest compressions and are on blood thinners. They still don't bruise like I saw in this case.
And were you aware that the chest compressions were done for a total of 35 to 40 minutes in this case?
I mean, I didn't know the exact number. I knew it was for an extended period of time as part of the resuscitation, but that's also pretty common.
And that could also, the length of time could also impact the amount of bruising, right?
Yes, it could.
And bruising can occur even immediately after death.
Yes, you're talking about in the peri-mortem period, and yes, the answer to that question is yes.
Bruising bruising in unusual places is another thing that might suggest a bleeding disorder, right?
Perhaps.
Perhaps. So,
I'm
for
not
example,
sure where
we
you're.
saw Exhibit 24, the bruising on Ms. Falzone's palm. And the palm is not a typical place to see bruises, right?
I mean, I don't know what you mean by typical place. If somebody's struck on the palm, then I would expect a bruise.
You don't see palm bruises as often as back of the hand bruises?
That's a fair statement.
Okay. And palm bruises are not typical for defensive wounds?
They're not as common as the back of the hand. That I'll agree with.
But a bruise in kind of an atypical place, or a place you don't see as often, did not prompt you to try to rule out a bleeding disorder for Ms. Falzone?
No, it did not.
Counsel, approach the bench, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been going for a while, and I thought we might be able to reach a, sort of a natural breaking point here. With my apologies to the doctor, we're going to have to continue on Monday morning. So we'll break now. Thank you for staying a couple minutes later than we typically do. I do want everybody to know that we could start 9:30 Monday morning if people are okay with that. I should have addressed that with everybody at the bench. If you'd like to approach the bench to discuss that, but just to keep us moving along. You want to? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've conferred with the attorneys. We'll let everybody have a little bit more of a lie-in on Monday or at the 9:30 start. We will start at 10 o'clock on Monday. So I thank you for your patience with the process. I thank you very much for your careful attention to the evidence. You've been very attentive jury, and we all appreciate that very much. So I hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you Monday morning. Please be back, as the bailiff may instruct, in time to come back in at 10 o'clock to start. Please remember, again, I've been repeating these instructions to you so that you can repeat them to yourselves frequently over the course of the weekend. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else, including your family and friends. Do not read anything anywhere, news media, social media, skywriting, anything. Don't read anything about the case. Don't listen to anything about the case. And don't look anything up in any way, shape, or form. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you Monday morning. Thank you again, everybody.
Rise for jury.
Okay, doctor, thank you very much. Yes, sir, your patience too. I'm sorry you don't need to come back, but it's all part of the process, part of the job. Yes, sir. Understood. So we will see you next Monday morning. I'll just, when you come back, I'll. I guess so. All right, thank you. Unless council has anything further, we'll wish everybody good luck this weekend, and we'll see you Monday morning.
So, Judge, just one, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
One brief scheduling. So,
Yes, doctor, you may step down.
so as I
Drive
mentioned
carefully.
at the bench, I believe it's likely that the state will rest on Monday,
Yep.
whether that be before lunch or shortly after lunch. I
Mhm.
think it'll be around that time frame.
Yep.
I don't know the court's preference. I understand that's calling any witnesses at this point, but for
I doubt he'll tell us until
Right.
until you rest.
Until Monday. But for closings, I don't, I typically would like to avoid a scenario where we close instruct and send them home for a holiday without.
Oh, yeah.
deliberated at all.
No. We wouldn't. If you finish on Monday and if there's no defense case or if the defense case is done, we will wait to close, and instruct and begin deliberations until Wednesday. All right. Did you have any proposed instructions? I'm looking at defense counsel. Okay. So I received the states. I'll look those up over the weekend and I'll let you see them on Monday. All right. Thank you, everybody.